Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I am, as always, your host, Tiger Paul Craven. I got my boy Jordan Bowman in the back. He'll be joining us momentarily. We got a ton to talk about in tonight's show. We'll talk mainly about our signing class, talking about some late guys that we added to the class, along with a few that everybody already knows, some highlights for the class, what me and Jordan think about what we did on signing day. And then we'll talk a little bit of Gator Bowl and the schedule leading up to the Gator Bowl for the Clemson Tigers and injuries and stuff like that that's pending for the bowl game. And then we'll kind of turn it over to you guys. But I see we got 20 people in the live chat already right now. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. If you could go ahead and hit that like button for us. This is a live video. The likes really help us out on the live videos. Also, if you are not a regular or you are a regular and you're not subscribed, I don't know what you're doing. Please hit that subscribe button for us. Help us out. Help us grow the channel. We do appreciate it. And as always, we have the super chat feature that you can utilize throughout the entire show. But without further ado, let me bring on my co-host, my buddy, Jordan Bowman. Jordan, how you doing tonight, man?
Yeah, living the dream, man. Pretty eventful week. Obviously, yesterday was obviously a big day for the Tigers. Spent a lot of my time, just kind of looking back and forth from my phone and like notifications, and just making sure everybody signed. Especially early in the morning.
Yeah.
And it was pretty nice just to have everybody sign like right on the dot, like just from Tavoy Fegan was the first. And really within like 2 hours, like from like 7 to 9, everybody in the class had signed and were announced. So, besides the late additions that Clemson had, but the guys that were committed, going into that day, they had all signed by like 10 o'clock. So that was really cool. No signing day drama. And I'm excited to talk about it because this class is, we've said it a bunch of times, like we really like a lot of pieces in this class, and we think this could be another big class for Clemson to kind of find its way back to where we all want them to be, which is competing for the ACC, competing for national championships, playoff appearances, all of that. And I think this class is another step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Look, I think the Tigers absolutely did a great job closing out this 2024 class. I think it will turn out to be really good. But before we get into all of the signing day stuff and the Gator Bowl and all this stuff, I just want to give a shout out to our fans out here, our people that show up and support us every single week. It is truly greatly appreciated, guys. Big Mick is in here. John Sprain gets in here. Droid, the real MVP. Michael Foster, Alexander, the Sunchance Kid, Jonathan Benton. And I think that's everybody who's commented so far. So all of those out here that are just in here watching, and those of you that have commented as well, thank you for showing up. We appreciate it. Hope you guys are having a good holiday season, a Merry Christmas, all that kind of stuff. I hope you guys get time to, or you get a chance to spend time with family and friends and all that good stuff that makes the holidays great. We won't see you guys again before Christmas is over, so hopefully you guys have a great Christmas. Hopefully, everything goes well for you guys, and we do appreciate you guys showing up. But let's go ahead and get into tonight's show, Jordan. This recruiting class was, I think it was a good one overall. We'll get into the specifics of all the recruits we added. We did add a couple late guys towards the end that I think definitely helped us, specifically along the offensive line. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But overall, we got 22 signees. 15 of those guys are actually going to be mid-years. So 15 of those dudes get to come in. They get to participate in spring ball, get a head start on learning the playbook, get a head start on physically developing with the strength and conditioning program, and just really integrating themselves into the team and into the college life, which can be a huge change and a huge jump for a lot of these high school recruits, depending on what type of program, what level of program you come from. Sometimes it can be a shock regardless of how many stars you have after your name according to 247 Sports or whoever. So I think it was overall a pretty good class. Glad we got 15 mid-years coming in. 9 states represented. We got a new state this recruiting class. So Christian Bentaker from Illinois, our first recruit from Illinois under Dabo Swinney. So that's a pretty cool thing to add another state to the recruiting prowess of the Clemson Tigers. What was your kind of overall thoughts on the cycle, just big picture stuff before we dive into some individuals within the class?
Yeah, I think this class, hit a lot of areas of need for Clemson, especially we talked about sort of the struggles along the offensive line and recruiting that way. I think the late additions definitely helped in that manner, but I think you really got a lot of help coming in at wide receiver, and I know Dabo took an exception to that. When he was asked about it, he was talking about he was asked about Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore, and he's like, well, we still have really good guys already in the room. We have speed and explosiveness already in the room. But I do think these guys are different types of players, just caliber of athlete, just more like the Clemson wide receivers that we're used to seeing. We were used to seeing, 3-4 years ago. So I think both of them have a really good opportunity to come in and play early. Bryant Wesco is obviously going to be one of those 15 early enrollees. TJ Moore, unfortunately, I would love for him to be one of those, but Tampa Catholic does not, let their students graduate early. So, that's unfortunate, but you do at least get one of them coming in. So that's really exciting. So you get help at wide receiver. I think you have just an absolute stud at linebacker, and a couple of complementary pieces around him at that position that I really like. And Sammy Brown is, he's different.
That's a dude, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's just a football player, man. He's a crazy athlete, man. Can't wait to see him.
And I thought you really did it. I thought Clemson did a really good job at defensive back this cycle. I think this is one of the best. It's really for the second straight year Clemson has signed. But I would put Clemson's DB class up there with a lot of schools right now. We know how good last year's was. I think this one is really, really strong as well. Headlined by high 4-star cornerback Corian Gibson. I really think this is going to be a really good DB class. Ricardo Jones is, Tavoy Fegan, Noah Dixon. I really like this collection of talent at DB. And as I already mentioned, I think you addressed your needs late on the offensive line, and I think they're not going to jump off the page as far as their star ranking, but I do think you got some pieces in this class with some attitude, with some nastiness. Some physicality that I think this offensive line has missed in some spots over the past couple of years. I think Ronan O'Connell is a dude. He's a mean offensive lineman. I think he's going to be a really good one. We talked about Watson Young and Elijah Thurman, who you added late, as well as Mason Wade, who you flipped from Duke. I think overall you addressed your needs in this class, and I think you got enough high caliber players at key positions to where I think this is a really good all around class. The only thing you really didn't get that you wanted to be able to get was quarterback. We can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty to talk about with specific players. But like I said, we landed, the guys that I think we needed to in this particular class. We had a lot of needs that we needed to fill, and And I think the coaching staff did a great job fulfilling those needs. You pull out of Illinois for the first time. All over the Southeast, we're recruiting really well. That continues. We still continue to get some guys out of Texas, which is really good with the emergence of Texas being a much better program than they have here recently. Still being able to pull those guys, I think, is important. And I know a lot out there. Before we get into specifics, a lot of fans, and well, not I shouldn't say a lot of fans, but some of the fans out there, talking about how Clemson's recruiting has fallen off and all that. I really don't think there's a lot of merit to that whatsoever. If you look at the average recruiting for Dabo Swinney's class, this class currently sits at 12, I believe, in the country. That is kind of par for the course with Dabo Swinney. Did we have a top 5 class once upon a time? Yeah, but that was the exception, not really the rule with this, with Dabo Swinney's, decade and a half reign or whatever it's been so far. And you look at guys that we're still pulling, like a Brian Wesco, a 5-star guy out of Texas, right? You see guys like that. You see a Sammy Brown that you pull right outside of Georgia's back door, right? One of the best linebackers in the country. I think he won the high school Buckets Award, for best linebacker, right? So you're still pulling those guys, and I think it's important to realize that, while we have missed on some guys, and while I do think there has been some developmental issues in different position groups, maybe offensive line, wide receiver, stuff like that. There has been, reasons for people to question and be like, why is this position group falling off? I don't think it's recruiting. I think it's more so development, and maybe you're just missing on some guys as well. But what do you think about kind of that narrative that's been floated around there a little bit?
I mean, I think you nailed it as far as like the narrative that Clemson's recruiting is not what it used to be. And I mean, that's just far from the case. And you already touched on it. I mean, if you go through it, I mean, the Clemson typically sat around what 7, 8 to 15 range. They kind of were in that 8 to 15 range. This one is 12. So I mean, it's about right in that middle. It's about par for the course for Clemson, and that's just that's part of that is just the nature of how they recruit. They don't sign as many guys as a lot of schools do, and even now when they sign, Clemson is signing more kids than they used to, but everybody else is signing more kids than they used to because of some of the changes in the scholarship rules as far as your recruiting class that have been made over the years. So, I think this class is right up there with any typical Clemson class. And I guess the difference that we have to acknowledge is, you have to be able to hit at the rate that you were hitting in those years before. That 2018 class that we always talk about, that was so great. I didn't have a lot of kids in it. It wasn't that high. I think it was 11th overall, if I remember correctly. But that class had Trevor Lawrence, Justin Ross. They had Xavier Thomas. You had a ton of high caliber talent, and it was more about quality, and then you had some lower ranked guys that you were able to hit on as well. So Clemson has to get back to doing that, and the evaluations have to be at that level if you're going to recruit that way. So and I think that's kind of where Clemson had kind of fallen astray. We talk about those 2 top 5 classes that Clemson had in 2020 and 2021. You had a lot of high-end talent in those classes, but there are a lot of guys, especially when you look at it. Even 2019, you had a lot of guys that didn't really live up to their star ranking or what Clemson expected them to be. And I think that's kind of hurt you, and you've kind of seen that over the years start to grow a little bit more, prominent. So yeah. I think, getting back to, hitting on, the lower ranked guys, it's never been a problem about, getting the high caliber athletes and the 5 stars and all that. Clemson still swings a big stick on the recruiting trail when it comes to that, but it's about making sure that you're filling the class with guys that will develop into contributors. And if you're not going to use the transfer portal, that makes it even more important. And we'll talk about the transfer portal a little bit later. But I want to focus on this class because I am really excited about them.
Let's focus on the good right now. Let's focus on the class. We're not going to get into the transfer portal quite yet. We'll get into it before the show's over, obviously. But let's just focus on enjoying this class because I do really think it is a good class. And the first real position group that I want to kind of talk about, Jordan, is a huge, point of interest for the Clemson Tigers. It was a big point of interest in the transfer portal so far. Although we went 0 for 4, and that is the offensive line, right? Everybody knows we got rid of Thomas Alston. He got dismissed. Dabo Sweeney brings in Matt Luke, a guy that has a resume is about as perfect as you could want as your offensive line coach. I mean, the dude is, legitimately overqualified to be Clemson's offensive line. He's everything you would want to be as an offensive line coach. And I think he messes with the culture perfectly. And I tell you what, man, he did an amazing job capping off this class in the few short weeks that he has been employed by Clemson University. It's quite crazy what he did. If everybody remembers back, we couldn't buy a high school offensive line recruit in this class. We got Ronan O'Connell. I think back in July we got him, and that was kind of it. And then we add, Young out of Daniel High, kind of a legacy, I think, 4th generation Clemson football player type deal. So everybody knows how the Clemson fans feel about Daniel High players, whether they're really good or not. There's just kind of that Daniel High. Oh, here we go again.
Stigma. Yeah.
There's a stigma about.
We've got some really good players come out of Daniel High. And
we have
household names, but
absolutely. We've had some great ones come out of Daniel High, and this dude may be one, right? But, we added Watson Young, a 6'3", 280 guy. And then, closer to signing day, we signed 2 guys that we didn't know if we were going to get or not. It was guys that we were kind of fighting for. Mason Wade, Moose Wade, as you nicknamed him on the last show. His nickname was a Duke commit. He committed to Duke way back in the summer. I think June he committed to Duke and was a hard Duke commit for a long time. And, Clemson was kind of out on him because of, his commitment to Duke and all that. And then, coaching changes happen and head coaches leave and things don't look quite the same. And he opened his recruitment back up and we land I think a really good, talented offensive lineman and Mason Wade, a 3-star out of Purcellville, Virginia, 6'5", 290, big guy. And then we also land 4-star Elijah Thurman, 285, 6'2", 285. He's out of Hinesville, Georgia, Bradwell Institute. I lived up in Hinesville for a while, so I know that area well. But what's your kind of thoughts on how Matt Luke was able to kind of just pull this offensive line class together, pretty much out of nowhere, within a couple weeks? It looks much different than it did even a week ago.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a testament to kind of first of all, his name. I mean, his name carries weight on the recruiting trail. I mean, Matt Luke is a household name in recruiting circles and the coaching circles. He has a lot of relationships, in this area, in Clemson's general recruiting footprint. Having worked in the SEC for years at multiple SEC programs, recruited some of the top, highest rated offensive line recruits in college football over the years. So, I mean, his name is pretty well known. So that, I think that's something that has to be acknowledged. And I think it's really testament to him because he came in and he was like, I want to hit the ground running. I think they had him and Chris Rumpf had the option to wait and maybe until after the bowl game to really assume their positions. But they said they wanted to hit the ground running, get started on the recruiting trail. And I think this is, I think that's part of the reason why Clemson was able to, kind of rally and kind of fill this class and get some players that have some upside. So Matt Luke did a pretty phenomenal job, I think, as far as, closing out this class and getting guys. And, Mason Wade, it wasn't like Clemson was unopposed when they opened up his commitment. Virginia Tech was really, really heavy on him as well. And so, but, Matt Luke's name and just his ability to build relationships and, the attractiveness of playing at Clemson, I think a lot of that helped in landing in flipping Mason Wade. And then, Elijah Thurman, that was, you were kind of battling with the Gamecocks. He was considered a Gamecock lean for a little bit. But you were able to sway his commitment. And now your offensive line class, while it's not what we had all hoped it would be coming into this cycle, you feel a little bit better as far as just, having, quality pieces and guys that you think can develop. And you feel a little bit more confident with the guy you have in position now who will be developing that talent now than maybe you did before. So, it's a really big deal for this class to get those guys in.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, I think, a huge deal for the Clemson team to get these guys in. I can't say enough about how Matt Luke was able to kind of pull this together. And Clemson is now, I think, at their 15 that they like to carry for offensive linemen on scholarships, I guess. So they did hit their number. And Dabo did inform us that Trent Howard is returning. So I think that definitely had something to do with kind of backing off the portal guys a bit too. And just going 0 for 4 in the portal for offers when it comes to Clemson. Now Clemson fans look at that and they're, probably a little bit perturbed about it, a little bit irritated. A lot of eye rolls going on around there. But I think Dabo kind of gave a kind of somewhat of a glimpse into what happened in just Clemson's unwillingness to kind of guarantee playing time for guys. And unfortunately in the portal, that will continue to hurt Clemson. And that's just kind of how it goes. But we are at our number. I think we pulled in, with the addition of Mason Wade and Elijah Thurman, man, I think it's a really good group of OL guys that we're adding to the team. And I can't wait to see what Matt Luke does with them. I can't wait to see what he does with the guys that are already on the roster. Because, this was a tough recruiting class for Clemson for majority of it until the end when kind of Matt Luke came in and kind of saved the day for us a little bit as far as the O-line recruits. But last cycle's recruiting class for offensive linemen was really good. So it's not void of talent in the offensive line room.
The last couple of classes have had some really talented players come in, So, but I mean, we've maintained on here that, we don't think there's a talent issue in Clemson's offensive line. It's a hard position to recruit to because there's so much that goes on developmental wise and strength wise. And as far as that position, because, these are 17, 18-year-old kids that are still growing and at a position like offensive line where your physical, the state of your body and all of that has a huge impact on just how you play and how you develop. That makes it hard to recruit to. And, some guys come in and they're physically ready and lower guys that come in that are physically more ready to play than maybe a guy that had, 5 stars to his name. It's such a crapshoot as far as evaluation is concerned. So, but I think Clemson has brought in enough guys that have potential and have the physical traits that you want in an offensive lineman to be like, well, I don't think we missed on all of these guys. We certainly haven't. There are guys on here. Clemson has some good offensive linemen on the roster right now. But you don't feel like, man, we really just missed on everybody. You think, okay, the first thing you go to is, all right, maybe it was a coaching thing. And so we've addressed that. And so, I mean, we'll see how it goes. But, you brought in a guy that has a proven track record of development, has, a track record of building good relationships, recruiting. So, I mean, I really think it's never been a talent issue these last couple of years as far as Clemson is concerned on the offensive line. So, whether you went to and got somebody in the portal or not, I don't think this group is devoid of guys that can eventually become really, really good football players. You just need somebody to be in there to kind of mold them. And so Matt Luke hopefully is the one to do that.
Yeah, development will be key this offseason. And, I think, I think you put it about as best as you possibly could. And, Matt Luke is certainly the guy to get the job done, I think. So let's go ahead and transition to a couple other position groups along the offense before we transition to defense. Wide receiver, we won't spend too much time on these guys because everybody knows who Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore are. Yep. Everybody's excited about these dudes. There's a potential for playing time for both of these guys next season, game one next season. So we'll see. We know, Brian Wesco's coming in. He's going to be a mid-year. TJ Moore's going to be a summer enrollee. So Brian Wesco's coming in mid-year. I think is good for him because he does probably need to get into the weight room, strength and conditioning, put a little bit of weight on, get a bit more physically ready to play at this level of college football. But I mean, the talent is there. And this Clemson offense for not just this season, but several seasons now has lacked the big playability. We are not an explosive offense, and we used to be a very explosive offense. And we have a huge void and a need for explosive guys. And I think they knocked it out of the park with both of these dudes as far as just being explosive athletes. Can't wait to see them don that tiger paw and start making plays for us.
Absolutely. And just like I said, like these are the receivers that remind you a little bit more of what Clemson has been used to, and guys that were key in the 2 national championships and 6 playoff runs. Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore are as good as it gets, as far as and as good as you can ask for, given kind of the lack of production over the last couple of years at wide receiver. Your ability to go and get those guys, it was pretty crucial, and it shows that Clemson still has that those recruiting shops and all that. And I think that's a credit to Tyler Grisham, who I know this fan base is really, really hard on at times, and I've certainly been hard on over the years. But I think I got to give credit where credit's due, and Garrett Riley as well. And I think that combo, I think, has brought some recruiting juice to the wide receiver position that you didn't really have as much of. So I just really excited to see these guys, because I think both of them are truly elite and are going to be really good football players here.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also I saw Big Mick mentioned Chase Bird, our preferred walk-on wideout that's coming in as well. Thoughts on him?
Yeah. Chase is a guy that Dabo kind of raved about a little bit. I think he's a guy. I don't expect him to come in and, as far Mick says he'll be a sleeper. I don't expect him to come in and be a guy that's competing for playing time. But I think he's a much better athlete than, especially when you watch his film, than people will give him credit for. And I think he's a guy that could definitely make an impact on special teams early on, and a guy that could eventually work his way into the rotation. Maybe we'll see. Not all walk-ons are created equal. Some guys are show up there and they do their 4 years, never really make an impact. Guys are scout team type of players. Which every football program needs. That's what walk-ons are for. But some just come in and kind of surprise you. And I think Chase could be certainly be that guy, possibly. Not, I don't want to put that on him, but
no. But
as far as PWOs go at wide receiver, Clemson has taken far less intriguing prospects than Chase. So
absolutely.
Excited to see him as well. But yeah, and that kind of sums up the wide receiver position.
Absolutely. And I know John just mentioned about Dabo's recent comments on the wide receiver room, and specifically Troy Stellato being out injured. This is going to be his first spring if he stays healthy. This will be his first full spring. So there's a ton of talent in that wide receiver group. A lot to still be, optimistic about. We obviously need people to stay healthy. We need people to take that next step. But I'm just excited to see, how these two guys come in and contribute because, I think their presence could be felt pretty immediately. So that's always exciting. A couple other guys along the offensive side that we added that have been locked up forever. And that is tight end Christian Bentancur out of Illinois that I talked about earlier. He's a big dude, man, 6'5", 240. I think he was the first recruit to commit to Clemson in the 2024 class, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it was.
No?
I think the first was. I think it was Tavoy Fegan, if I remember.
Tavoy Fegan, okay.
Yeah, I think he was.
But he was one of the early ones.
Yeah.
He was one of the early ones to kind of been committed, stayed committed. No drama there whatsoever. Again, out of Woodstock, Illinois, and then we got our running back. Where's he at? Sorry. David Ajamume, 6'1", 205, out of Kennesaw, Georgia. What's your thoughts on these two guys and what they're going to bring to the Tigers?
Yeah, well, on Christian, I think he brings kind of that physicality and, big playability at tight end that I think Clemson could certainly, you can never have too much of those, but he's just a physical specimen, I guess is the way to put it. I don't want to make this comparison, but I'm going to make this comparison. He's a Travis Kelce type. I'm not saying he's as good as Travis Kelce or going to be as good as going to be as good as Travis Kelce, but that's kind of his style of play, and just he's really physical at the catch point, just a matchup nightmare. Runs really well for his size, just kind of everything you want in a tight end as far as the size, the speed, and the hands are concerned. He's a really natural catcher of the football. And for some tight ends, that's a problem. You can have all the athleticism in the world, but if you have stone hands, it doesn't really matter. He does not have those. He is really good at high pointing the football. And making big plays, contested catches. He does that a ton. And, after the catch, he's a load to bring down. So really excited to get him in the class because I think he's a guy that could, I don't know, we'll see. It's Clemson's tight end room is in a really good shape, I think.
Really good
currently.
Yeah.
So, he might be fighting, but I think he's a guy that maybe could work his way into the rotation early. We'll see how quickly he assimilates into the offense, but I really like his potential and what he'll be down the road.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That dude's he's a pass catcher, and he can be a fraction of the player that Travis Kelce is, and that'll be just fine with me. That'll be just fine with me. And then David Ajamume, he's coming into a crowded running back room, but he's a guy that's been committed for a long time. He's kind of he brings that energy to this class, I think. This dude's, got a lot of personality. He's always out there, talking and stuff like that. Just speed. Speed is kind of his thing, man. He's a fast guy. He's a quick guy. He's explosive, I think. Out of Kennesaw, Georgia, played for North Cobb. Excited about him. I don't think I expect him to play, very much early on in his career. But definitely a guy to look at for the future of Clemson, and just knowing that we're continuing to build that depth in that room and have guys behind, our guys that will be exiting, really soon. So I think it's a good get for the Tigers.
Absolutely. And yeah, he's a guy that's been locked in for another guy who's been locked in for a while. Had kind of a scare with Auburn for a little bit, but he stayed committed and locked in. And when you watch, I think what jumps out to me when I watch him is I think he's just a really patient runner, really good contact balance. and I think, he has some big play. Like you said, he has some big playability. He's a guy that I think that has a really good. I think I don't see the high ceiling. Like, I don't think he's ever going to be like some of the Clemson running back. Like, he's not going to be like Travis Etienne or anything like that. I don't think. But I think he's really well coached. He has a really, really good skill set. And I think he's going to have a really good baseline coming in and kind of have a higher floor. I think he's going to be a very good contributor down the road. Just another really great take for Clemson in this class. And, after the struggles at the running back position the past couple of cycles, it was nice that Clemson found their guy, locked in on who they wanted, and kept him in the, not only did they get him to commit, they kept him in the class.
Yeah.
And you've seen them continue to do that into the 25 cycle with Gideon Davidson. So, I mean, I think the future at running back for Clemson is pretty bright, considering the guys that are already on the roster and who they're going to be bringing in. So, but David, he's been a great ambassador for this class, recruiter for this class. He's been a fun, person to follow on social media. So, really excited to get him on campus as well. He will be an early enrollee. I guess I should be as we talk about these guys, we should be. I should mention who is an early enrollee and who isn't.
All the offensive linemen are early enrollees.
Yes.
So we talked about them,
except for I don't believe Watson. I don't believe Watson Young will be, but I could be wrong about that. He might have elected, but as for I don't believe Watson Young is, but Ronan O'Connell, Elijah Thurman, and Mason Wade are expected to be early enrollees.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe. I thought they all were, but yeah, you could be right about Young. Christian Bentaker, the tight end commit, he is a summer enrollee, so he won't be a mid-year. And then David obviously will be a mid-year. So those are the guys we talked about so far. Brian Wesco's a mid-year. TJ Moore's a summer. So that's so far who we talked about. All right, so let's go ahead and transition to the defensive side of the ball. Another big position group of, I guess, importance, emphasis, curiosity for the Clemson fan is the defensive end position, the edge guys. Everybody knows how thin we are at edge. Everybody knows, we did have a transfer head out. And really the only proven guy you have coming back with significant playing time is freshman TJ Parker, right? That's the only guy you really got coming back along the end. You're bringing in two guys in this recruiting cycle in Adam Kasai and Darian Mayo, both two massively tall individuals.
Oh, yeah.
They are both 6'7". Darian Mayo is 6'7", 250 out of Good Counsel High School in Only, Maryland. He's a 4-star, 250 pounds. And then Adam Kasai is 6'7", 230. He's a 3-star out of Heritage in Palm Bay, Florida. These dudes are like the Twin Towers, man. They're massive individuals. Obviously, Kasai could probably use some weight, right? Put on some weight on him. He's only 230 pounds right now. So obviously putting on some size is probably going to be on the top priority for the Clemson coaching staff. But I mean, you get two dudes with length like that, that can create some problems in the passing game for quarterbacks and just their ability to just affect it in that way. So what do you think about these two guys? And where are they out developmental wise? Are they guys that are going to need a couple years, or do you think they are guys that could contribute this year? Because again, there's playing time on the board, specifically at the defensive end position for Clemson. Like I said, TJ Parker is really the only guy that you have that is proven, that when he runs out on the field, you know what you're going to get. The rest of the guys, there's young talent there, but there's not a whole lot of proven talent there. So what do you think about these guys?
Yeah. We've talked about it, and we've known that Clemson has been trying to get a little bit more longer and get more size on the defensive end position. At times over the past couple of years, Clemson has been a little bit weaker on the edge, especially in the running game. A lot of stretch runs, outside zones, all of that where you have to be able to set the edge. It was a little bit more difficult, and Clemson gave up some big running plays and some chunk yardage at times. And so I think they're trying to get bigger and longer along the defensive end position. So these two guys are certainly guys that can address that need. I think Darian Mayo is a guy that I think it can come in and play really early. He is not going to be an early enrollee, so that could definitely change things. But like you said, there's a lot of playing time to be had, and there's some at least playing time up for grabs that I think he could come in and compete for. I think Adam Kasai is a guy that has a lot of potential. He camped and I think the story was he came in and into camp and told Dabo he was going to earn the offer, and then just went out and they said I don't know how he didn't lose a rep or something like that. Yeah. So he's a guy with a lot of upside. I think he's going to have to develop a little bit physically. He's obviously he's smaller, and you look at him, he looks thinner. So I think he's a guy that's going to have to develop a little bit more physically to be that kind of big defensive end that Clemson is looking for. But I think Darian Mayo is in a better spot right now, and I think there's an opportunity for him to come in and play early. But we'll see what happens. But I like both of these. I like both of these guys a lot, and both bring a lot to the table, and especially down the road, I think they can be really good football players.
Yeah, I mean, you got to love the Adam Kasai story that Dabo kind of shared about, him coming to camp, stayed, from what Dabo said, stayed all 3 days and didn't miss a single thing. Literally participated in everything with the one goal of telling Dabo straight to his face, apparently, that I will earn a scholarship to Clemson. And there you go. He went out and did it. He convinced Dabo. He convinced the Clemson coaching staff. So, I mean, to me, you got to love a guy like that because he's willing to work for it, right? He's willing to put in the work when nobody's looking and grind for what he wants. So you got to love that. And I can't wait to see it, man. That dude put on some weight. He could definitely be a difference maker in a very big position of need for the Clemson Tigers. So let's continue along the defensive line. Let's talk about our kind of tackle recruits that we brought in. Heaven Brown Schuler, 6'4", 290, a three-star out of Pace Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. And our guy, Champ Thompson, 6'3", 275. He's a three-star out of Meadow Creek, Norcross, Georgia. So both Georgia commits. Dabo talked about these guys in the presser and really talked about, just how awesome they are as individuals, how awesome their families were, and just how much he enjoyed the recruiting process with both them and their families. So looking forward to seeing what these dudes can come in and do. Again, defensive tackle, little congested at Clemson. So playing time definitely is going to be at a premium. You're definitely going to have to work to get into that rotation because there's just a lot of good guys there. But these dudes are definitely the types that can get it done. I know Champ Thompson, Dabo's already talked about how he's been on campus already. He's already at practice. He's already learning from Tyler Davis and the rest of the defensive tackles. Specifically Tyler Davis because he won't be there anymore after the bowl game. So getting that little bit of time, is huge for Champ Thompson, and I'm glad he's taking advantage of it. But yeah, our boy TD, man, it's gonna be weird not seeing number 13 in the middle for the Tigers anymore. But
yeah,
we'll give him
that one last time though.
Yeah, we'll give him his flowers on a later show. For sure.
But yeah, with Champ Thompson, Heaven Brown Schuler, I think both of these guys. They're going to be walking into a really deep defensive tackle room still, even with Tyler Davis and Rukaroro departing. So early playing time, I don't know. I mean, Champ Thompson coming in and being an early enrollee is a big thing for him. But that's I think both of these guys have potential to be really good football players down the road. I don't really expect them to come in and really be big time contributors in the rotation. But I like both of these guys a lot, and Clemson continues to just get what they need, especially at the defensive tackle position. I mean, Nick Eason continues to be just really, really good, and at building relationships and bringing in guys. And excited to see what he can get out of these two.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in a really good place on the defensive tackle position, and Nick Eason. I mean, the dude's just churning out and developing that talent. So definitely no worries from the Clemson fan on that particular position group for sure. The Sunchance Kid says he's got to go. Merry Christmas. Hey man, have a good one. Thanks for stopping by. Good luck to your Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Congratulations on getting our boy Bo Collins. Hope he does well for you guys.
Absolutely.
Alexander gets in with a super chat. Thank you so much for sending in.
Clicked on it at the same time.
You got
always
it?
do that. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh. There we go.
There we go. We got it.
He says, yeah, great analysis of the signing class. Keep up the work and go Tigers. Thank you, Alexander. We greatly appreciate that. We try.
Yeah, we appreciate your support, man. Thanks for stopping by. We know it's the holiday season, and it's a very expensive time for most people. So the fact that you came on and supported the show, thank you very much. It is greatly appreciated, and we appreciate the compliment as well.
Absolutely.
All right, so talked about the defensive line. Now let's get. I guess we'll knock out linebacker real quick. It'll be a real quick one. These guys, there was no surprise here at linebacker. So let's go ahead and talk about the linebackers that we landed. We landed 3 guys. Obviously, everybody knows about 5-star Sammy Brown. You mentioned him at the top of the show. Kind of one of the highlights pieces of the class. 6'2", 230. 5-star, was a running back, a linebacker. The man did it all. He's just an all-around great football player. I mentioned that he won like the high school Buckets Award for best linebacker. Just a great guy on the football field. I mean, absolutely crazy athlete. Got a little bit banged up late in the season, but should be a full go for spring practice. And could be a guy that gets some playing time early with the exit of Jeremiah Trotter. We'll see what that room shakes out to be. And then we bring in Drew Woodaz, a 6'3", 200-pounder, the brother of Wade Woodaz, also a linebacker for the Clemson Tigers out of Tampa, Florida. And he's supposedly the most athletic of the Woodaz crew, which is just an entire athletic family.
Oh, yeah.
So as Dabo put it, he's on the clock. Good luck, no pressure, all of that stuff. He's got some people to prove right. And then our late add of the linebacker crew, a guy that wasn't on a lot of Clemson fans' radar, I don't think, or anybody's radar really. We were
last week.
We were talking. Yeah, until last week, we were talking about Brian Shaw, and that was going to be our third guy that we were going to add, and we were battling with Arkansas, but we felt like we were in a good place. And then you quickly saw the pivot of the Clemson coaching staff. We talked about it on last episode about, hey, this offer or it wasn't an offer yet. They were going to bring CJ Cooper Taylor on campus that weekend for a visit. And then he immediately got an offer, right? So with that offer, basically told Clemson fans all we needed to know, that we were out, obviously, on Brian Shaw, and we were all in on CJ Cooper Taylor. He commits, I think, the day before signing day, and obviously signed yesterday with the Clemson Tigers. A guy I didn't really know anything about or his name about until last week, like most Clemson fans. But, he's a 6'3" guy, 230 pounds, got really good size. He's out of good counsel in Maryland, a 3-star guy. And Dabo kind of talked about him a little bit about his recruitment kind of being a product of the transfer portal and kind of the negative, effect that it is having on some high school recruits. And he basically just put it, pretty frankly, that we would not have gotten a guy like CJ Kuba Taylor without the transfer portal. He would have been locked up by some other school that didn't take somebody else in the transfer portal. So glad we got that guy. Glad the Clemson coaching staff was able to pivot and be able to land a guy of his caliber. I think he's going to be a really good addition to this linebacking room.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, he's teammates with Darian Mayo, has that connection there. And I think some people, I'm sure Clemson fans, questioned and saying, "Oh man," they look at, they go and look up his profile, look at the star ranking, and
Yep.
he's kind of he's pretty under the radar, relatively unknown prospect. But he's a guy that hasn't been playing football very long, and it didn't start until this year, and had a really, really big year. He, from what people said, he started alongside Aaron Childs, who, if you guys remember, was a linebacker that Clemson was really, well, not really, but they were involved with. He had an offer, ended up committing to Florida. Both of them started this year at Good Counsel, and from what people said, you couldn't tell the difference between the two. Aaron Childs was a high 4-star, top 200 kid. But when you watch the two of them, they both, popped off. And, when you turn on the tape, I mean, physically, he's everything you want in a linebacker. He's 6'3", 230, has really good size already. And he's just, he is he's a thumper. That's for sure. But he moves really well, really instinctive for the position, and I think he has a lot of raw ability. So I'm as far as, late takes go, I think he's going to be a really good one. I'm pretty high on this one, especially. So I'm excited to see him enroll and see what he can eventually become. But I think I like this take a lot. And I don't really, when I didn't see much. He didn't jump off the page to me any less than, Bradley Shaw. When you turn on their tapes, I think they play sort of similarly. And I think CJ Kuba Taylor looked every bit as good as him, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm excited, and I really like this take, especially. And then, I'm already high on Sammy Brown, and Drew Woodaz has a lot of intrigue athletically as well. So, I think this is another strong linebacker class for Wes Goodwin. And with, bringing back Barrett Carter, you feel like you're in a really good shape next year. If Barrett Carter decided to not come back, then you're kind of like, what are we going to do? But I think you're in a really good spot. I think you have some talent already in the room, but behind them, but behind him and Woodaz, with Jamal Anderson, D. Creighton, Kobe McLeod, I think there's some guys that can play, and bringing in this freshman class. So I think you're in a really good spot at that position.
Yeah, and Dabo mentioned that had they lost both Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter, they would have probably had to kind of explore the transfer portal a bit and try to bring somebody in with a bit more playing experience. But again, we get Agent Zero back for another season. So that's about as good as we can hope for. And, I think it's a really good linebacking class that we just brought in. So no complaints there. I think the linebacking core is in good hands for several years to come now. All right, so let's transition into kind of the defensive backs a little bit, and we'll kind of wrap up with those guys. So we brought in quite a haul in the defensive backfield again. We talked about we've talked about all season really about how good that recruiting class was last season, and you saw it on the field, and you're going to see it in the bowl game because as previously stated, we ain't got no corners for the bowl game. So, you're going to see a lot of that young talent out there again. And you saw him produce on the field this year. And this class is really no different. I think we brought in a lot of good players, and I'll just list them off real quickly, and then you can kind of highlight the ones that you want to. But we got, and I do believe all these dudes are mid-years as well. Yes, they are all mid-years. So we got Ricardo Jones, a 6'3", 200-pounder, 4-star, out of played for Northside and Warner Robins, Georgia. Then we got Corian Gibson out of Lancaster, Texas, a 6 foot, 170-pound 4-star. Tavoy Fegan out of Carrollwood Day in Tampa, Florida. He's 5'11", 165. Noah Dixon out of Troup County in Georgia. He's 6'2", 185. And then we have Joe Wilkinson, a late add to the class out of Rome, Georgia, 6'1", 185, and he's a 3-star guy. So that kind of rounds out what we brought in the defensive backfield. And then Ashton Hampton as well. He's going to be a summer enrollee. We signed him as an athlete, 6'2", 190, out of Tallahassee, Florida, Florida State University High School, right there at the doorstep of Florida State. So we signed him as kind of an athlete guy. But those are kind of the defensive backfield that we brought in this class. What's kind of your take on it? I think it's a really good class. Once again, I mean, we're just stacking these defensive backs. It's amazing the talent that we have started to really stack at that position.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this, the combination of Mike Reed and Mickey Kahn, I think they've done a really good job the past few cycles at their respective positions. The evaluation, not all of the guys that Clemson has brought in has been the high 5-star, talent. Some of these guys were, mid to low 4 stars, 3 stars. But the evaluation and the ability to get in the guys that they, want, and not really having to, circle back and get, backup options and stuff like that. I think that's been, a really big deal for this group. And obviously we saw it pay dividends, this season, having one of the best pass defenses and just one of the best secondaries in college football. And I think this group is just gonna add to it. I mean, this is a really good class. Corian Gibson is obviously is probably the crown jewel as far as just his upside and athletic ability. One of the fastest he's going to be one of the fastest players in the class. Obviously, he has an injury. I believe he tore his ACL this year, so he's gonna be recovering from that. But I expect him to make a full recovery and be a really good football player for Clemson. But yeah, this group is just really, really good. The safeties, Ricardo Jones I think as criminal Ricardo Jones wasn't, I think 24/7 doesn't have him as a top 10 safety. I'm like, there are not 10 safeties in the country better than Ricardo Jones when you watch him on tape.
Absolutely not, man.
Absolute ball hawk, just really instinctive football player. He has an attitude, a mean streak about him. I really like his game. He's going to be really, really good. Noah Dixon as well. I mean, those two really just, are going to be a really good – they make for a really good safety duo. So I'm excited to see them come in. And then, guys like Ashton Hampton, he has a lot of positional versatility. He could play corner. He could play safety. We'll see what, when he comes in, where he kind of fits in. But he has a lot of ability as well. And then Tavoy Fegan, a guy that he's been in the class probably, like I said, he's been in the class the longest, first guy to commit to Clemson. He was a big reason why TJ Moore ended up committing. But Tavoy is a really, really good football player in his own right. This is just a really, really good defensive back class. I'm excited to get them to come in because we've just seen over, multiple years now, true freshmen, true sophomore, defensive backs that are coming in and being big time contributors. You combine that with the guys already on the roster, Avion Terrell, Shelton Lewis, Kylan Griffin. You have a lot of talent and ability to work with. It's it's going to be kind of crazy. I'm really excited to see all of these guys come in and play together, because there's going to be a lot of competition, and these guys are what Clemson has kind of been, they've missed at times in years past. I think that the defensive back room in general is just in a really good spot and as good as it's ever been. So really excited for this group.
Yeah, I mean, the corner and the safety position both. I think you summed it up nicely. Just talking about the amount of talent that's been stacked in those rooms, and I think that's there's something to be said about that, and the increase in production that you've seen on the field, because I mean those dudes are fighting. They're fighting for snaps, man. They're fighting for playing time because there is such good quality depth there in the defensive back room. So another great class, for the safety and the corner groups, and continue to stack those guys and continue to put that talent. Is going to definitely just make this defense that much more of a problem to deal with. The last guy we'll kind of talk about for the class, last but certainly not least, another position of contention for the Clemson Tigers, specifically in the 2023 year, is the kicking game. Okay. And they are bringing in, he is a mid-year guy. Yeah. I think Dabo was pronouncing his name Hoosier, Nolan Hoosier.
Yeah.
I thought it was Hauser.
That's not how I had heard it. Yeah, I've always been saying Hauser, but I'm going to have to change it, I guess.
I guess it's Hoosier now. Noah Hoosier, out of Cornelius, North Carolina, played for William Amos Hull. 6'1", 180-pound, 3-star guy. He's kicked about 1.5 billion field goals, apparently. One of the best, if not the best kicker in the country. And boy, does Clemson need it. We brought in a guy last season, with a huge leg, and we saw how that ended. He just could not get it together when it came to consistency and accuracy. So, if nothing else, we have a guy to push him or jump him on the depth chart and provide quality kicking for Clemson, because we need it. Down the back half of the season, you could tell Dabo Swinney was just going for it on fourth down in situations where he probably wouldn't, had we had an adequate kicker on the sideline. But he knew we didn't. So that resulted in a lot more taking chances on fourth down, which ended up working out quite often for the Clemson offense down the stretch. But again, you do need that consistent kicker in your back pocket that can go out there and make a game-winning kick, or just kind of extend a lead just to kind of get points on the board, before halftime, or whatever the case may be. So good get for the Clemson Tigers. Glad we got a little bit more competition in the kicking room, and hopefully that makes both of them better, Robert Gunn and Nolan Hoosier, better, and hopefully they can compete against each other and make each other better, and hopefully more consistent. So,
yeah, and Nolan, he's a guy that just top 2 or 3 kicker in the class, depending on where you look. I think he's number 1 and by somebody I can't remember. Just hell of a leg. He was pretty much Mr. Automatic in high school, and a guy that just has a lot of ability. I think he's a guy that's going to come in and compete for the job right away. But I thought Robert Gunn was going to be I thought Robert Gunn was a sure thing coming out. So kicker is it's kind of a crapshoot, especially early. You get these guys with a lot of leg, but that transition from the high school game to the college game can be challenging sometimes. I mean, you think of a guy like Chandler Catanzaro. He was awful. If you guys remember when he was when he first did he kick as a true freshman? His first year kicking. I don't know.
I don't know if it was his freshman year, but his first year kicking.
His first year kicking
was terrible.
Horrible. It was horrible. By the end of his career, he was one of the best kickers in school history. BT Potter, same way, came in. Had a
Terrible.
lot of leg. Had a lot of leg. You had no idea where it was going.
Yeah.
It was like it could go right down right down the middle through the uprights, or it could hit somebody in the upper deck. Like you just
Kind of,
didn't know.
kind of similar to Robert Gunn's
Yeah.
season this past year.
Right. And that's why, it's always hard. And, maybe Robert Gunn makes that jump, so it's certainly possible because, he's a guy that still has a lot of ability. I mean, he was still doing kickoffs. I mean, because he has a literal gun for a leg. So I don't know. We'll see. But it's good to have that kind of competition. And I think that the kicker situation will be in a better spot next year, regardless. And bringing in Nolan is you can never have enough quality kickers, I guess.
No, for sure. We learned that this season that you can never have enough quality kickers because we definitely ran into that problem quite often this season. But that kind of wraps up the 2024 class, at least as of right now. So 22 commits, 23 if you count our preferred walk-on. But 22 scholarship commits, right? 15 mid-years. We kind of talked about the mid-years. One of the cool things, that I thought that, college football made a change is the mid-years being able to participate in bowl prep and stuff like that, and actually going to the bowl game and stuff like that. So I think pretty much all of the mid-years are going to the bowl game, as far as I understand it. I think Dabo put out a list. So I think all of the mid-years, minus maybe a few that aren't going. I think Noah Dixon was possibly not going. Watson Young was possibly not going. Brian Wesco, Joe Wilkinson, and Ronan O'Connell. I think those were the ones that were possibly not going. But everybody else was going to the bowl game. So that's a super cool thing that college football did. And, I already mentioned that Champ Thompson has already been involved in practice and learning from those veteran defensive tackle guys that won't be here, specifically Tyler Davis. So I think that's a good thing, and it helps them hit the ground running and really kind of get set up before kind of spring practice hits and all that stuff. Just kind of get your feet with how college practices are run and all of that kind of stuff. So thought that was a pretty cool thing to kind of mention, that we will have a lot of these guys on the sideline in Jacksonville when we play the bowl game against Kentucky.
100%. Yeah. And that's always a cool thing. And it's a nice rule change because it does really help. And it's a good thing for these young guys to come in and kind of, see what's up and kind of get acclimated or, early on and just kind of get acclimated with the team because, not everybody, you're going to be playing with most of these guys, next year. And so it's a good opportunity for sure.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be very good. But yeah, so that wraps up kind of the 2024 class. Couple questions before we kind of transition and talk a little Gator Bowl and then kind of turn it over to the comment section. So everybody knows we were pursuing Edric Houston, right? He ended up committing to Ohio State, obviously. So they were willing to add an additional edge guy. Defensive end guy. So what do you think Clemson does there? I think Dabo made it pretty clear that they're not looking to the portal in that position anymore. They're going to look more high school recruit, if any. So you think they sign another guy in February, possibly out of the high school ranks, or how do you see that kind of playing out at the edge position?
Yeah. I don't really know. It seemed kind of, like Dabo was like, well, we'll just work with what, we have, maybe if a guy, there's a lot of time between now and February, especially from a recruiting standpoint, a lot can happen in 2 months. But right now it seems like they're gonna roll with what they got. And if an opportunity, if someone pops up that they really like and feel like they can they can get, then they'll do it. But it seems like they're content with where they're at right now. And so he mentioned, he's like, hey, if we we can move Peter Woods to defensive end. Like, would you rather have a high school kid or Peter Woods at defensive end? I was like, well, that's a good point. And I think you're in a good spot at defensive tackle for the most part, even if you move him. So that could be an option. And Peter Woods definitely fits the mold of that of a bigger defensive end. He'd probably have to drop some weight because I don't think you want him at 315.
Yeah, no, he definitely have to drop some weight. But he could do it. He's definitely athletic.
He totally could do it. Yeah, I mean, he did it in high school. He played defensive end in high school a ton. So
I think there is some pause for concern there at the defensive end position. It's just I know we got our new coach in Chris Rump, and I'm assuming that development is going to only go up from here, and he's going to be able to get more out of the guys. Than the guy that was there before him. But I mean, it still does give me some pause for concern because you are relying on guys that are just unproven. And that doesn't mean they can't come out there and completely surprise you and ball out. I'm not saying that can't happen. I hope it does. It's a point of concern for me that we didn't go out and kind of get a more proven guy out of the portal or something like that. But again, Dabo made it pretty clear that they're probably not going to do that. If they do anything, they'll sign a guy out of the high school ranks that can kind of come in. So again, I'm sure him and Chris Rump have had many conversations about the guys that are in the room and the talent and how he feels about them. And if Chris Rump feels that he can win with those guys and develop those guys into what he needs them to do, then we got to roll the dice and believe that he can accomplish that because, again, that's what he's getting paid to do. And that's what he's going to be asked to do. So I would assume if he wanted a guy, that Dabo would have let him go get somebody out of the portal. But, apparently he's comfortable with the guys he's got in the room right now.
Yeah. And, time will tell whether that's the right decision or not. But, we'll see. I mean, like we said, there are guys in here that we're just still kind of waiting on to pop outside of TJ Parker. I mean, Cade Denhoff has been in the program a while. It seemed like, things were starting to come on a little bit towards the end of last year. We'll see. But you're going to be struggling to find a guy with that's going to be able to produce unless, the guys in the room right now take big steps because, no more Xavier Thomas, no more Justin Maskell. You don't have really any experience, after that. So we'll see. Is it Cade Denhoff that makes that step? Is it Zaire Patterson who, Dabo's recent comments about him have not been encouraging, quite frankly. So I don't know. Is it Jaheim Lawson, a guy that they've, raved about, said he's one of the best pass rushers on the team, but, obviously he's not playing for a reason. So obviously there's probably still some development to do. So you don't really know. You don't really have a whole lot of guys. They mentioned, a guy that they like to talk about, but also doesn't play, Armon Mason. You don't really have a whole lot of, like I said, you don't have a lot of proven production and guys that have played a lot of football. So, you're taking a risk. That is for sure. If you don't address it in the portal, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's certainly a roll of the dice for sure. And, it gives me some anxiety thinking about it. But, at the end of the day, if they think they can win with the guys that are out there, then that's what they think. I'm just concerned about the youth that's there. And you're losing a lot of the experience at defensive tackle as well. Rook's out the door. Tyler Davis is going to be out the door. So you're losing quite a bit of, just experience along the defensive line with a Justin Maskell, an XT, a Rook, and a Tyler Davis all exiting in the same year. And, there's something to be said about that. No, I think, defensive tackle is obviously in a much better situation than the ends right now, at least from, a quality depth standpoint and playing time and guys that have been proven on the field. There's much more of those guys at defensive tackle than defensive end, but we'll see how it plays out. They're rolling the dice with the guys that they have. Dabo says they believe in them, so hey, here we go. Let's hope that some of those guys can take some big jumps, some big leaps under new defensive end coach Chris Rump. So he's definitely got the pedigree and the ability to develop them. So
absolutely. But we'll see if it pays off.
All right. So heading into the bowl game, there will be a couple pending decisions. So I'm sure those will change things as far as portal and this class goes as well. So this class could obviously go up. We talked about maybe taking another one at defensive end. If somebody were to leave, who knows what happens in the portal. But right now we're still pending decisions from, guys like Will Shipley, RJ Mickens, two of the bigger names, I think, that we're still wondering what they're going to do. And so, with that said, do you think there's any more attrition that happens on this Clemson roster after the bowl game? It's obviously not going to come before the bowl game, but, after the bowl game, are we going to see any more transfers? Do you think, anybody's going to bolt for the NFL and try their hand at the next level? Or do you think this roster is going to look pretty much the same heading into spring practice?
Well, Big Mick just put in the chat that RJ Mickens just announced he's returning, which was expected based off of things that had been said and people have been saying during the week that he was leaning towards coming back, and so I guess he made it official while we were live. So that's a really big deal.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but outside of that, I expect it. I think Clemson is sitting at 85 or 86. Dabo seemed to hint at a particular offensive lineman medically retiring, John Williams, and he mentioned that. I don't know if, and then he talked about that they were sitting at 86 and pending one other player. So I don't know if that's who he was referring to. It seems like that's who he's referring to. So going out of the bowl game, Clemson is right out about the number. I think some portal entries should be expected. It would kind of be silly to think that nobody would enter. So we'll see what that looks like, and see, maybe, they're definitely going to have to reevaluate the roster regardless, and kind of the numbers at each position. But if guys leave, then obviously that certainly changes kind of how you do things. But yeah, I would expect it would kind of be. It would kind of be expected for him to, for some players to enter. I don't know if it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a ton or like a mass exodus or anything like that.
Yeah,
I think the guys that you were expected to transfer out for the most part have, and I think a couple of more that, depending on how they feel after the bowl game, and maybe they're still mulling decisions. Maybe they just they decide to leave. But yeah, I think it would be unreasonable to think that nobody transfers after the bowl game.
Yeah, no, there'll probably be at least a couple, I would assume. You never know who they're going to be, but I'm sure something will come out about it, and we'll find out and cross that bridge when we get there. But right now, this class sits at 22 commits, 23 if you count our preferred walk-on. So online, just to ask the question, since we're already talking the portal, let's go ahead and get it out of the way. Is Dabo still not evolving in regards to the portal?
Well, I think that's the question is kind of flawed, because Dabo really hasn't. I don't know if evolving is the right word for it. You've certainly I think you've seen Clemson be more aggressive in the portal than they have been the last couple of cycles. Not by much, but a little bit more. They've been dipping their toes in a little bit more and communicating with more guys. But I I would be lying if I said I was disappointed that Clemson hasn't landed somebody yet, and don't seem like they are. Based off of Dabo's comments, as of now, they don't intend to go get somebody. Now things can change, and there's a lot of time between. They still have a whole nother portal window to go through after the spring, and so obviously things can change then. But as of now, it doesn't look like that's likely. So that's kind of disappointing. But I've talked about it. I don't think that Clemson not using the portal this cycle is all on. Is just a Dabo thing. The guys that they went after, especially in retrospect, some of these guys they were looking for playing time. They wanted to play. They wanted to be guaranteed a starting position. Alan Herron, who ended up committing to Penn State, he just flipped from Penn State to Maryland today. And so that it's crazy how things can kind of flip on a whim. I thought if there was any target that I thought they really should have landed it was Keelan Rutledge, but he's the guy that is also looking for early playing time, well, not early playing time, but looking for a guaranteed starting position. And all Clemson can really guarantee right now is we'll let you come in and compete for the job, but if you don't win it, you're not entitled to start, and we're not going to just start you because you're a transfer, which I think is the right attitude. I don't think you should. A program like Clemson shouldn't be guaranteeing starting positions to anybody. But that's going to make it hard to attract really high profile transfers, and because a lot of these guys are in the portal looking for starting position because maybe they started at their other school and they expect to start at their next school, or a guy is leaving because they weren't starting, and they want us to go to a place where they're expecting to start. So I don't want to make excuses for Dabo, but I think some of the things he did say today are valid. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't just say you can't just go and pick somebody out of the portal and take them. They have to want to come there, and that's just that it just wasn't in the cards this cycle. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, I'm disappointed, but I'm not necessarily disappointed because of Dabo. I'm just disappointed that it didn't work out because I feel like Clemson could have used one of those guys. But we'll see how it goes. I don't think that's a death sentence for the for Clemson as far as the offensive line. There's still there's a lot of guys that I think with some development can be really good football players. Like I said, it's not a talent issue. So we'll see how it goes. And maybe after the spring things are different and they feel like they need to go get somebody. They feel like they need to go get somebody, and there's a guy out there that kind of matches what they're looking for. There's a connection there, and who knows?
Yeah, look, I'm with you. I am disappointed that Clemson didn't land, a portal guy. I really thought, I think, I made it clear. We both kind of made it clear on this show that we believe that Clemson would get a portal guy this offseason. I definitely thought they would get, 1 to 2 offensive linemen for sure out of the portal. They offered 4, and for all the reasons that you just mentioned, it just didn't work out. Whether it be Clemson, unwilling to, guarantee playing time, which I think is a good thing. I don't know why you would guarantee anybody a starting position at your school, specifically along the offensive line. That's just such a unique position when it comes to, working as a unit and all 5 guys working together. So it just didn't work out for Clemson. I think they went after people. A lot of people will point to, Clemson not taking it serious, or NIL, or, whatever the case may be. I think Dabo's made his thoughts pretty clear. And, as a Clemson fan, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, they are what they are. He's not going to build his roster through the portal. He said that he will plug holes here and there if he feels the need to. But he is going to try, first and foremost, always to go through the high school ranks. That's how he's always going to approach it. Now, a lot of people will disagree with that. But again, that's how he's going to run his program. The bidding war thing, I think Clemson's made it clear that they're not getting into bidding wars, and just trying to, have recruits run around with offers and try to get you to bid it up. They're not interested in that either. Again, you can agree or disagree with it. I'm just telling you their philosophy on it. They're not gonna engage in that at all. So, is that going to hurt them some in the portal? Probably, but it is what it is at this point. I do think we brought in a lot of good players on the offensive line. I am happy with kind of the pivot that Clemson did after missing out on all four of those portal guys. I think any Clemson fan, if you look at the class they brought in, you got to be pretty happy with the pivot that Matt Luke was able to do with the class. So, at the end of the day, do I wish they pulled somebody out of the portal? Yes. But again, we got to kind of move on with it and, just know that, portal recruiting is very, very different than high school recruiting. And it's showing. I think you mentioned last show, and I think you made a lot of good points that this coaching staff's probably still getting their footing of how to handle the portal and how different it is than their regular recruiting beats that they're doing, every day for most of the year,
Absolutely. And so, like I said, and like we said, I mean, there's still things can change,
Yep.
and the roster situation can change. So it doesn't mean I'm not shutting the door on Clemson using the portal, this offseason. But right now, as of now, they're not in the position to do so, just based off of what they've done as far as roster management, who they've brought back, and just kind of how the number situation works. So we'll see.
Absolutely. We shall see. All right, let's go ahead and transition to the Gator Bowl really quick. We'll just highlight a couple things on the Gator Bowl, and then we will turn it over to the comment section for the last bit of the show and let you guys drive it. So the Gator Bowl obviously will be played on the 29th at noon in Jacksonville, Florida. Clemson taking on the Kentucky Wildcats, as I mentioned on last show. I think they're traveling down this weekend, right? So I think they're done. They finished up bowl practice on Monday, Tuesday, something like that. Tuesday.
I think
Tuesday was their last bowl practice in Clemson. And then they got a couple days off. They're going to be flying down this weekend. They resume practice on Christmas Eve. So that's Sunday, the 24th will be their first practice down in Florida. And then I think they're going to be available to the media on the 27th. So that'll be Wednesday the 27th. So we'll get to hear from the coaches and the players, obviously before our next show. That'll be Thursday at 7 p.m. So we'll be able to talk about, all that kind of stuff. We'll do our full bowl game breakdown next Thursday, and then the game will be Friday. So we'll kind of be doing a game preview the day before the game, which is a little bit unique for us. But it'll be a good time. You guys should come check it out and hang out with us as we talk that bowl game next week. But so that'll be kind of the schedule for Clemson, and then also for us heading into bowl week. So they resume practice on Sunday. They'll have media availability on Wednesday, the 27th, and then we'll have our show on Thursday and talk about everything that we've seen and heard, and then do our game breakdown and predictions against the Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah. And, it's going to be a really, really interesting matchup. It's a good opportunity for both programs. Kentucky seems to be, really up for this game. It was kind of question mark whether some of their key guys would play, but when they learned the bowl opponent was Clemson, they were all in for it. So,
Yep.
They're obviously their big time running back and Ray Davis. He was a guy he's well thought of, and a guy that's expected to be picked in the NFL draft this year. Decided to play in this game. Cornerback Andrew Phillips is also expected to play. Another NFL prospect. So Devin Leary at quarterback, someone that Clemson is very, very familiar with. So, it's going to be a really interesting matchup. And Kentucky poses a lot of interesting matchups for Clemson on both sides of the ball. And I don't want, again, we'll give our big breakdown next week, but this is a good opportunity for Clemson to close out the season on a high note against a Kentucky team that's, I think, is better than their record shows. And they lost some games they probably shouldn't have lost. And they had some struggles offensively, but I think is a team with some talent and a really, really stingy defense. And if we know anything about stingy defenses in Clemson this year, is they have not fared all that well against them for obvious reasons. So, the line's only about 5.5 right now, I think, in favor of Clemson. I expect this to be a kind of a slugfest, sort of. Unless something drastically changes for Clemson or Kentucky offensively. So
probably not.
I wouldn't expect it, especially with some of the people that Clemson won't have. But I think this is a good opportunity again to close the season out on a high note, 5-game winning streak against an SEC program, which it would be your second straight win over. And it's a big deal for Dabo Swinney because his first bowl win was against Kentucky in the 2009 Music City Bowl, so he's kind of coming full circle here. So I'm excited to watch this game, and it'll be noon, so you kind of just get up and get to watch the game early, and then kind of enjoy the rest of the games that day. So that'd be pretty nice. It'll be a change of pace from what we're used to. From Clemson in bowl season, because at times it's been night games. So even the non-playoff bowl games were night games the last 2 years. So, it'll be
so
excited for it.
So we won't be up at 12, 1 o'clock doing a post-game show, Jordan.
Yeah, that'll be nice for once.
We'll get to do one earlier in the day when we're still, pretty awake.
Especially if it's a double-edged sword, because if you lose, then you're just kind of like, I can't go to bed yet and sleep it off. It's like, my God. Here we go. But on the other hand, if you lose, you're not, when you're doing the show is less miserable, I think, because you're not tired on top of
eating the L that we did several times this season.
Don't remind
me. We've done far too often the past couple years. We're getting a little uncomfortably good at doing the losses for the post game live. So I'm going to need Dabo to kind of rectify that for us.
I imagine going I'm just thinking back to the Duke game, and when we did the post game show on the main Voice of College Football channel with Mark, and that was late at night, and we were just that was
a brutal one, man.
That was brutal, and who knew that would be foreshadowing of things to come.
We should have known. We should have known, but we tried to be like, it's a one game, blah, 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 blah. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The thing that we didn't know is everything that could go wrong would continue to go wrong. We didn't know that at the time, but it definitely did. We have still yet to have a game this season without a turnover. So maybe the bowl game. Maybe the bowl game. We got one more chance. We have one more chance to not go an entire season with at least one turnover.
I wouldn't bet on it considering the opponent, but
I wouldn't either. We'll definitely turn it over at least once. Hopefully it's just not crucial. Hopefully it's not in the red zone. Hopefully it's not a pick six or a scoop and score. Hopefully it's a storm that we can weather within the game with the defense, because we'll get into it more next week, but the defense is going to be shorthanded as well. So very shorthanded. So we shall see. It's gonna be a fun game. We'll have tons to talk about next week, breaking down the matchups, the game within the game, and all the storylines going into it coming directly out of the media availability the day before. So there'll be a ton to talk about.
I don't know if the real MVP is still in here. He's a Kentucky fan, supporter of all of the Voice of College Football shows, and I know he was in here earlier. I don't know if he's still here, but that'll be a fun show to do.
Yeah. He came in. He came in.
Post.
I saw him in here earlier talking about, come on, Clemson, lose to Kentucky earlier in the show. But I don't know if he's still in here or not. But shout out to him for showing up. I'm sure he'll give it to us if they happen to beat us next Friday.
Oh, he will. He will.
No doubt about it. But we will be getting some people back, So I see John Sarin talking about Antonio Williams. He'll be back for the game. So it'll be interesting to see him and Tyler Brown on the field together at the same time. That's a lot of speed on the field. So,
it's fun.
All right, that's kind of all we had for our kind of scheduled portion of the show. Jordan, you got anything else you want to hit before we turn it over to these crazy people in the live chat?
No, I mean, we covered everything. It's been a busy week. We're 8 days away from actually seeing the Tigers play again, so really excited for that. As trying as this season has been, sometimes I keep showing up and wanting more, and it's hard to believe the season is coming to an end pretty soon. We've just we've had a great time doing it, doing this show for another season, and it's been a blast. Despite the hard times, it's always great to get on here and it's kind of my therapy in a way at times.
Somewhat, yeah.
Just kind of talking it out with you and in the live chat. It's definitely therapeutic. So I really appreciate it and appreciate you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely helps. They're not fun. Like the losses are not fun to get on here and talk about. But, you make a good point in that it is somewhat nice to kind of just get your thoughts out so that you're not stuck in your head with them for the rest of the day. You kind of get to voice them to another person. It's pretty cool, man. And I love the little community that we've kind of built here. We got kind of our core people that show up and it's pretty amazing that they keep showing up. I don't know why they show up to listen to us, but I'm thankful that they do. This show has been fun. This is I didn't mention it at the top of the show. I meant to, but this is our 50th episode of the All In Show.
Crazy.
Now we've been doing this show a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
But when we dubbed it the All In Show, I think that was last off season, maybe.
Yeah.
Towards the end of last year. I think we started calling it the All In Show. So this is the 50th episode of the All In Show, and I just want to thank everybody who's shown up and supported us within that time and showed up to all of our post-game lives. Obviously, you for coming on here and carrying the weight and all that kind of stuff. And just, I mean, it's been a fun ride. We're not going anywhere. This isn't a farewell video at all. We're not going anywhere, but just kind of celebrating a cool milestone there for us, our 50th episode, and it's been really cool, and it's been growing. So hopefully we can continue that. I hope you guys stick with us throughout the off season because this show will not go anywhere, even when we're not playing games.
Right. Totally. We will be here, and it's pretty wild. The time has flown. It feels like we just started doing this. And we're, how many episodes? We're 50 plus the episodes we did before that. It's kind of blows my mind, but it's helped. It certainly helped the off season go by, and but it made the season go by faster. So
it does, man.
It's crazy.
It does seem to kind of speed up college football for me a little bit. Like the season comes and goes, I feel like a lot quicker than it used to almost, which is a weird thing. which is why we need to enjoy this bowl game coming up. It may not be the bowl game that obviously we wanted to be in, certainly at the start of the season, but at the end of the day, we get to see the Tigers don the pall for another game for the 2023 season and finish up this run. Hopefully, it'll be 5 in a row. It may not have started like we wanted it to, but they've done the best that they can do. They rallied to win 4 in a row, and hopefully we can make it 5 in a row for this bowl game. So let's enjoy it, because the next 8 months we won't be able to see the Tigers take the field, outside of a spring game. So let's enjoy it while it lasts, regardless of how meaningless the media tells us this bowl game is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not meaningless to me. I want to win this game.
Absolutely.
I'd rather win this game than lose.
It's 100% not meaningless to me. No game that Clemson has ever played has been meaningless to me, though. So
right.
I don't really care what the media says or that narrative that goes around. I don't buy into that at all. Anytime your team's playing, you want them to win. At least in my mind. But all right, let's turn it over to these degenerates in the comment section. These college football crazies, these fanatics out here. Thank you guys for joining us. The floor is yours. So any questions that you have for me and Jordan, anything that you want us to comment on, anything that you want our opinion on, doesn't just have to be about Clemson. It can be about anything, college football related or anything like that. So we'll give you guys a couple minutes to get these.
Honestly, it doesn't even have to be college football related. You could be asking.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Christmas or the holiday season or whatever.
I'm an open book for the most part. Tiggs gets in and says Clemson 200, Kentucky 0. Good Lord, that would be amazing. I would thoroughly enjoy that. I'm sure everyone else would turn that football game off after the first quarter. But I would continue to watch it.
Yeah, I would continue to. Well, I would turn it off. At the end. Obviously because, I can only play Xbox for so long before I stop. So
it gets a little boring after a while, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how many touchdowns can I score on rookie mode?
Yeah, got to turn NCAA 14 off.
Yeah, it's not fun anymore.
Man, I can't wait for the new college football game to come out.
Man, dude, if they push it back one more time, I'm gonna I don't know, send a strongly worded email to somebody. No, but they need to hurry up, man. I don't know what's taking so long. They're already paying players, so what's the big hang up now? Just pay them the royalties from the game or whatever. Do the same thing Madden does in the NFL. Whatever. Just get the game made.
Like Mike asks, thoughts on Florida State having a board of trustees meeting? You think that means anything significant if they will leave the ACC in the next year or so? Well, it's certainly not insignificant. And there's a lot that it still has to happen. The process of leaving the ACC is a very arduous process with how things are set up. And Florida State has, along with a lot of other ACC programs, have gone to the ACC headquarters to view the grant of rights. It's a weird rule that they can't, own copies, but there's the Freedom of Information Act. If a state school has a copy of it, they have to release it. And obviously they don't want that kind of that kind of contract being, released to the public, because of course they wouldn't. So there's it's a weird rule, but there's legal reasons why they don't allow the schools to have copies of the grant of rights, and they have to actually go to the headquarters to look at it. But
so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's weird.
But the fact that you try to keep your contract under literal lock and key, tells me that you are shady. Like, there's no reason you should, if you have a contract that's perfectly, good and legal and has no issues with it, you shouldn't have any problem with anybody trying to pick it apart. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the nature of the business. At the end of the day, the ACC is a conference that is in the interest of keeping itself together, and so they got to put as many hoops through it as possible. But yeah, like Mike, I do think it's significant because it is the start of the process. And I don't think they're the only ones, but Florida State has by far been the loudest as far as their vocalizing their displeasure, and especially since they were snubbed from the college football playoff. It's certainly kind of ramped up a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I don't expect anything to happen all at once or blow up, but I do think it's going to be a kind of a slow kind of process build up. And then things will, and I think, it could start with Florida State leaving, and then maybe another school leaves. Maybe it's Clemson, maybe it's UNC, maybe it's Virginia, maybe it's, I don't know. But, Florida State is not the only school that has been working to kind of pick apart the grain of rights and find a way of action. I know Clemson for a fact is a school that's done the same. They're just not as loud about it.
Yep.
But Clemson is not, kind of twiddling their thumbs and sitting idly by.
They're not hoping the ACC just suddenly figures it out and starts running the conference like a competent conference.
Yeah.
Like some of the others. I guarantee you
they'll be
Clemson
waiting for a long time.
Yeah. If Clemson has anything to say about it, they will not be left behind or be put in a poor situation without trying their best to do what's in the best interest of Clemson. I don't think anybody at Clemson has this blind loyalty to the ACC. I think, and I don't think it's just Clemson and Florida State. I think it's several other schools are doing the same thing. Florida State they happen to be the most vocal in public about what they're doing. But I think you can believe that, there's a good portion of ACC schools that are doing the exact same thing, trying to get out of this grant of rights deal and this terrible contract that the ACC has kind of handcuffed them to.
Absolutely. Big Load asks Georgia versus Clemson next year. Oh man, early peak. How does Clemson stack up? Yeah, I could. Yeah, I could do a whole. I could do we would be on here forever. Yeah. So far, obviously, I would not pick Clemson to win that game, right? As it stands right now, Georgia got some good news this week that Carson Beck would be returning as the starting quarterback. So, you were kind of hoping that Carson Beck would be a one and done kind of guy, and then they're starting a true freshman next year, or a first year starter at least next year. But it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. They're still loaded with talent. There's some speculation about Brock Bowers and him potentially coming back. That would not be. That would be.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
that'd be bad for everybody else in college football, but it'd be great for Georgia.
Yeah. As it stands right now, not great.
Yeah.
I think honestly, I think Georgia, from an offensive line standpoint, they've taken a dip a little bit from what they were the past couple of seasons. Still really good. But next year, I think they'll be looking for some a little bit more consistency there. So, week one, maybe you have an opportunity. But the problem is Clemson has offensive line questions next year. So it's an interesting thing. But the quarterback matchup is not in your favor, which is not great. You'll have comparable defenses, but Georgia's been far more productive offensively. So as it stands right now, it's not amazing. I just said I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it, and then I went on a little rant. But
I don't feel great about it. I'll just leave it at that. Well, I don't feel great.
But there's a lot that can happen between now and that game, and as we get in, I could feel a lot differently. But as it stands now,
that would be a cool game to go to. That's going to be in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, right?
Yeah, Atlanta.
That would be a really cool game to go to.
Yeah, and it would be nice to get him back in Atlanta after the game in Charlotte a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they got us in our home away from home, so we got to go get them in their home away from home.
Absolutely. The worst 2K big men HD. That's an interesting name.
That's a great name.
There's a reason I don't play 2K anymore.
Terrible at it.
He has how good is the wide receiver Notre Dame got from Clemson? I'm assuming he's a Notre Dame fan.
Collins.
Obviously, talking about Bo Collins. I think Bo Collins is a guy that hasn't fully hit his ceiling yet. But I think he's a player that is, really, really technically sound from a route running standpoint. He's not a super fast guy, but I think he's good enough at getting separation downfield, and he can be a big play guy. He didn't show it consistently at Clemson, and part of that was just him being available and injuries. But I think he still has a chance to develop into a really, really good football player. And he was when he played, he was a very capable option for Clemson. And I think he's definitely going to come into that Notre Dame wide receiver room and give them a boost. But it's all about him kind of taking that next step, because that was kind of his thing. He wasn't able to take that next step and kind of be that guy. So I'm interested to see what Notre Dame does with his talent and his skill set, because I still think he can be a really, really good football player. Let's see what else. Trying to find a question. I think there was.
Here you go. I got one.
Okay.
Does Kirby Smart leave and coach the Falcons? No, I don't think so.
I would be very surprised, but
I'd be shocked.
I know there's been some talk of, just in general about, some of the bigger names in college football getting interest from the NFL. And, with some of the changes in college football, the pro game has been more appealing, because you don't have to deal with, NIL and the transfer portal and all that. You don't have recruiting. For some coaches, it's been too much. And, you haven't seen a whole lot of head coaches leave, but you've seen a lot of high caliber assistants leave for the NFL and take jobs, because it's a different game. You don't have to manage. You're working with grown men, and you don't have to manage, the transfer portal and recruiting. You don't have to recruit. You're just there to coach ball. Unless you're, on the managerial side of things and dealing with rosters and contracts and stuff, you're just there to coach football. But when you're a college football coach, recruiting is like half of the job. Football, the actual football is maybe 15 to 20% of the job. You gotta be an ambassador to the university. You gotta recruit. Yeah. You gotta manage the roster. You gotta manage personalities, build relationships. There's so much more to being a college coach than just coaching ball. That it's for some coaches, it's getting to be too much. I don't think Kirby is one of those, because he's in a really good position. He's coaching at his alma mater, and he's a 2-time national championship head coach. Was a game away from being in the playoff. He lost one game. I would be surprised if he just bolted and took an NFL job, because there's no guarantee that would work out. We've seen really successful NFL head coaches go to the league and flame out.
Terrible results for the most part. Yeah. A lot more examples of failure than there is of success for college coaches transitioning to the NFL, especially the head coach guys.
Outside of Jimmy Johnson and Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of great examples right now. So that's kind of the deal.
Yeah, I don't think he goes anywhere. But you make a lot of good points about why the NFL could be attractive for high-level college coaches, because it just seems every year there's more and more work that gets piled on these coaches, and believe me, look, I don't feel sorry for them. They get compensated very well, but it is a lot, man. And then you stack on the recruiting your own roster. Every single year as well. It's a crazy time to be a college coach. Pretty stressful, I would assume.
I see people in the chat roasting Syracuse. Yeah, they're not looking great right now. Not making the ACC look very good. Down 14-0 to South Florida.
Jeez.
early in the second quarter. So I'm pretty sure they turned the ball over twice. And, shout out to South Florida. Alex Golesh is doing a really good job.
Good Lord, Syracuse.
And Syracuse off the field is having more success. Obviously, they hired Fran Brown from Georgia.
Yep.
And he's hit the ground running already. I think he's brought in 5 transfer portal guys already, including one of the top quarterbacks in the portal and Kyle McCord. There's all of a sudden Syracuse has some buzz around them. But Fran Brown is well respected in the industry, great recruiter. A lot of guys want to follow him. I think it has a chance to work out. I don't think he'll ever get Syracuse to being, a really, really good football program, but I think he could do better than Dino. We'll see. And it seems like he is invested in Syracuse so far. So we'll see. I didn't mean to make this about Syracuse, but when people were mentioning it, it just kind of popped up in my brain. Trucking Mogul asks, is this the least amount of offensive signees we've had in a while? I would have to go back and do the math on that, because you didn't take a quarterback, so that might be skewing kind of your view of it, because you still took 4 offensive linemen, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, so that's 7. A running back.
Yeah.
I believe that's
5, 6, 7.
Unless
that's
you count
8. That's 8.
Unless you count kicker. Unless you count Nolan Hoops. Yeah, it would be 8. That's more special teams, so I wouldn't count that. So 8. Yeah, I mean that's 8 out of 22. That's not a particularly high ratio. So that could be. I'd have to go look. But that's an interesting question.
And we took, yeah.
How many did we have in 2023? I'll let you look that up.
Yeah.
Big Load asks, running back Shipley returning and Phil. It's trending that way. I think Will Shipley will make his decision after the bowl game. I would, if I had to guess right now, I'd say he's coming back. I feel pretty confident right now that Phil Maffa is coming back regardless. So there's a pretty decent chance that Clemson has both Will Shipley and Phil Maffa again in 2024, which would be pretty cool. Pretty cool, especially since both guys, had opportunities to leave, whether it was, NFL draft or the transfer portal. They have certainly been approached, and there's been some numbers dangled in their face that would probably make you, roll your eyes. But they, as it seems right now, they are planning on coming back. Let's see. John Sarian says, sort of off topic, I think Dominic Thomas landed in a good spot for himself, at least a good head coach. Yeah, Georgia State. I think that's a really good spot for him with Sean Elliott. That's a football program. They love to run the football. They run the football a ton. That's what their kind of identity is. Dominic Thomas is he's a really strong, powerful runner. He's going to fit really well in that offense, I think, and I'm excited to see him because he's a really cool story. A guy that works hard, been through a lot of adversity.
Yeah, man.
And he's going to get his opportunity, I think. And so he's in a really good spot. I'm excited for him.
Yeah, hopefully he gets a chance to start and be an every down back. And, you obviously know what that dude can do in the weight room. We've all seen the videos. So he's Quadzilla is his nickname for a reason. And when he did get touches at Clemson, he ran the ball really well. Unfortunately for him, he's just behind Will Shipley and Phil Maffa, and there's not very many carries left over. We had 12 recruits on the offensive side of the ball in 2023.
Yeah, that's a pretty 12 versus 8 is, as far as numbers go, it's pretty significant. I would say that's probably your lowest. But when you put it into perspective, the offensive side of the ball has had a lot less attrition than the defensive side of the ball over the past couple of years. You just haven't had a lot of guys leave. You have had a lot of guys come back. You haven't had a ton of high-end NFL talent leave, so you're not having guys leave early. Guys are staying for their 4th, 5th, sometimes 6th year. So, it kind of changes, how many you can take each cycle. So, you're not really losing a whole lot next year. So, as it stands right now. So, kind of makes sense when you think about it. Big Load asks, what do you know about the junior Gideon Davidson, Max Prep Junior of the Year? I saw that. Really special player, just top 100 kid, all of that. But he's a guy whose ranking I don't think does justice how good he actually is. The athleticism, the power, the speed. He's a different type of back. He's one of the best in the country, and it's really cool that Clemson was able to get in on him early and get his commitment. But he's a guy that really awesome story, comes from a great family. And he's just really, really good, elite football player, elite running back. Just kind of does it all, and is a really, really well-rounded football player. He put up I think he put up 2,700 yards this year. This is ridiculous. You put on the tape. He's the real deal. He's the real deal. John mentions he played both offense and defense. I believe he played defensive back. He had a couple of interceptions. He was a first team all conference or all state on both sides of the ball. So that's really cool. Will asks Jordan, are you getting excited about the Bulls' recent success? I'm uncomfortable with the Bulls' recent success, Will. I really don't know what to think right now. I'm not gonna jump onto the bandwagon yet, but
don't do it.
They're playing a lot better right now. I think Kobe White has been balling recently.
They'll disappoint you. Don't do it.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying not to buy in, but
it's hard. I know.
It's hard. And, I'm a guy that I haven't followed the NBA as closely as I used to, but, I still keep up with the Bulls and how they're doing. And I watch a game when they come on, but man, I can't let myself get hurt again because I've had a lot of issues with how this franchise has been run. That I can't, any sliver of success, I can't, fully buy in, but it's good that they're starting to turn things around and playing better basketball because they have been, the first part of the season, they were unwatchable. They were literally unwatchable. Couldn't do it. So,
I
hope they keep rolling. Mike Fort, one of our resident Michigan fans, good to see you. He says, so with FSU governors upping the push out of the ACC, is Clemson planning to follow suit? I think that's a really good question. From everything I know, there's been a lot of positive communication back and forth between Florida State and Clemson, and they've both been kind of consulting each other with how to proceed and move forward. So, any move that Florida State makes, I wouldn't expect Clemson to immediately follow suit because I think there's a process there, and Clemson has kind of been going about this a little bit differently. They have the same, they have the same, both Clemson and Florida State have the same motivations. They're just choosing to go about it in different ways.
Yeah.
But I would expect, Clemson to not necessarily follow suit, but, take steps in that same direction.
Yeah, and I'm sure in some instances they're working together as well. obviously probably sharing some information and some thoughts and different things like that. Probably not everything, because again, they're probably keeping each other at an arm's distance, but I'm sure they're working together in some capacity, because again, like you mentioned, everybody's got the same goal, and that's trying to get out of that grant of rights.
I mean, and those two programs in particular, even Clemson and Florida State in particular, have carried the ACC as far from a media and viewership standpoint, from a brand, brand and revenue standpoint. So it's it's in their best interest, and they kind of see themselves in similar lights. And it's like we invest more than anybody else and care about football more than anybody else in this conference, and we're not getting what we should be out of it. So things need to change. And so, at that end, they're pretty much they're very aligned with each other. So, we'll see how things move forward. I'm interested to, if anything really comes out of that Board of Trustees meeting Friday, because the last time they made a big stink, it was just a big Zoom call where they just basically like, we need to get out. Yeah, we need to get out. I agree with the Florida. I agree. Rah rah rah. But nothing. They didn't really make any progress. So I'd be really interested to see kind of what this meeting kind of produces, because the last one was kind of just a public show.
So it was just like it looked more like a stunt, really.
Yeah.
It was just a bunch of people repeating the same thing in a Zoom call repeatedly about just ACC and blah 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 blah. It was unproductive. There was no purpose of that meeting whatsoever. Again, my opinion of it is it's a long road. This is not going to be easy. There's a reason this has never been done in college football. So it's not going to be as simple as just having your lawyers look at the grant of rights and, oh yeah, this is how we beat it. It's not going to be that simple.
Absolutely. Let me see. Yeah, John mentions, Clemson hired Chris Bellavacqua. So there's little doubt they're working on a plan and options. He ain't cheap now. Yeah, he's pretty well known in the industry. He's gonna he's absolutely Clemson is absolutely looking for any avenue that they could potentially exploit in the language of the grant of rights and legal wise to kind of find whatever there is to be found. So go Tigers. Asks he says glad it's official for TJ Moore. Need that one. Yeah, absolutely. Really high on TJ and excited to see him come in. It's a shame it's going to be later, because I wish both him and Wesco could be early enrollees, but I'm glad we're getting at least one.
I think if you had to pick one though, you'd want Wesco to be early, just because of
the physical.
He needs to develop physically
a little bit more. Yeah, I would agree.
A little bit more than TJ Moore. So
I definitely think TJ is more. He looks more like he's from a physical. He's not as tall and lengthy as Wesco is, but I think he's a little bit more physically developed at this point in his career to kind of play early. But we'll see. Tiggs gets in. He says, "Will the Coots ever be relevant?"
I guess that depends on your definition of relevant, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean,
they ain't ever going to be Clemson. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So,
well, we'll lose to them again. It's bound to happen. But
of course. But they'll never consistently be what we are.
I would agree.
I don't think so. I don't think so anyway. That's just my opinion, though. Relevant, as in consistently a bowl team, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. If that's your,
I think they could do that.
That's kind of their bar. So barely 500 program all time. So yeah, we're 6-6 is right on par with kind of where they've been at. 5-7 ain't that much worse. Okay, I'm a chill on the the Gamecock slander. It's a lot of fun, but I try to be a little bit more objective on here sometimes. Michael says Bulls fan as well. I don't trust them, just like I don't trust Clemson basketball. Yeah, that's another. Clemson basketball took their first L. I don't feel too bad about it. I thought they played a really good game on the road against a really good Memphis team that has since beaten two. They went and beat Virginia by 22 points. That's a good football. That's a good basketball program, good basketball team that was kind of undervalued. And Clemson played them to the wire. Probably should have won and missed some opportunities. So yeah, I get the distrust of Clemson basketball, but I feel really confident that this is a not only is this a tournament team, but a team that can win and go on a run in the tournament. I still feel that way. It's come back to bite me in the past, but I feel like this team is different, just kind of how they're made up. They're a complete basketball team. And, they're 9-1, which they played a tough non-conference schedule. They've only lost one game. And that's with, Jack Clark and Alex Hemingway not playing, and Chase Hunter has not been playing good basketball. So, you get those guys back and Chase gets on a roll. This team is going to be tough. That's a team that's going to be tough they're going to be tough. I still think they're really good. Let me see. Below that, who's better, Milroe or Beck? I believe Milroe's athleticism with the spontaneous playmaking are tough to coach. Beck is in a system. Stetson was better. Argument from the other day. That's a really good question.
That's interesting.
That is an interesting question. I do think Jalen Milroe is, when he ultimately decides to go to the NFL, I think he's a guy that's going to be a lot more sought after because of his athletic traits, and he's got a hell of an arm. I mean, so does Carson Beck, but that kind of combination of athleticism and arm talent is just kind of tough to beat. But Carson Beck is a really smart football player, and just a good quarterback, really capable quarterback. You saw Milroe really, for the most part, he improved a ton over the year, and they kind of figured out, what his strengths, and he's played good ball. It was a lot of the reason why they beat Georgia. So that's a good question, though. It depends. It's kind of I would kind of agree. Who would I rather have? I think I would rather take Milroe, but it in a perfect world, because you have that, because I think his ceiling is a little bit higher. But I would listen with you to take Beck, because I think he was the more consistent player of the year. But yeah, he is in a system. But
yeah, I think
he's a talented quarterback. So I think there's a conversation to be had there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think you could really go either way. I think it's a really good debate to have, just as a fun debate for college football fans. I think I would tend to lean Beck, just because of his arm talent and, just being a little bit more accurate, a little bit better throwing the football. But from an athletic standpoint, I mean, there's no question that, Milroe's better. But I do think Beck is adequate when escaping the pocket. He's not a statue. He is a guy that can, go get you a first down if the protection breaks down. He can go get you, 3 yards and run out of bounds or whatever. So I think I would lean Beck because of that. Milroe scares me sometimes when he throws the ball, man.
He does.
He throws the ball into coverage a lot, man, and I'm just like, bro, wait. Whew, a good thing I'm not an Alabama fan. I'd be having a heart attack every time that dude threw the ball. But I think it's an interesting debate to have. I would lean Beck, but I think it's a lot closer than a Georgia or an Alabama fan would make it out to be.
Yeah, it's kind of And it's kind of more what you value more. Like if I need if I need a guy I know that's going to be consistent and make Carson Beck makes NFL throws every
Yeah.
week. But a guy that's going to be consistent, understand, and is a little bit better with the football. Taking care of the football, which is kind of what Clemson needed this year. I would go Carson Beck.
Right. I guess it really depends on what kind of team you got, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're a Georgia team that's got a really good defense, you kind of just want a guy that's not going to go out there and lose the game for you, right? Not go out there and make really dumb plays or make really risky plays. I should say, not dumb plays, but risky plays, right? You kind of wanted a guy just to be there, play within the offense. He does have an NFL arm and he makes great throws and great reads and all that. But I guess, you're right. It does depend on kind of what type of team you have. How are they built? You think of a Clemson back in, Deshaun Watson days. He was out there just improvising, doing all kind of stuff, man. And that was, that worked for, that team that Clemson had. So, I guess it really does, depend.
Yeah. And the last part, he said Stetson was better. I would actually agree. I would agree on that too. I do think, I think Carson Beck this year is better than what Stetson was in 2021. I'll say that. In 2022, Stetson Bennett is better than Carson Beck this season. But Carson Beck is a first-year starter. So, I think that's a testament. That's a testament to how good of a year he had. I mean, Carson Beck was really, really good this year, and really consistent. So, I don't think it's a slight to say that Stetson was better, because I think Stetson was a better quarterback than a lot of people gave him credit for, especially his last year. He was really, really good.
Here's a good question.
I'll hit on this one. Will says getting Joe Girard in the portal was big. Yeah, one of the best portal pickups of the Brad Brownell era. Just he's been, he started out kind of slow, but when he got rolling, he's been lights out. And he's at Syracuse, like their fan, they had a love-hate relationship with him because he's a shooter, but he's been a really good playmaker for Clemson too. Like he's been really unselfish this year. He's taken his shots, but he's also been a big time playmaker for them. And finding open guys. He's a really good passer, and he just kind of opens up a area of that offense. And the outside shooting that he brings, his quick release, makes it tough to stop. I mean, really, the only thing I could say about him is he's not a great on ball defender, but he played in a zone at Syracuse his entire time. So that's about it. I mean, he's just been really good and fun to watch. You can pull up the question you were about to click on.
Oh, okay. Give me 1 second.
We'll do a couple more. We're almost at 2.5 hours, man. I just realized.
I gotta get out of here soon.
Yeah.
Here we go. Who do you have going to the Super Bowl this year? That's a good question. I have. Let's see. I'm gonna go with the Niners, and the Ravens. That's what I'll go with.
I think those are good picks. I like the Niners. The Ravens. I don't trust them to go all the way. I just don't. I mean, Lamar is playing really good football right now.
Right.
I don't know. Their defense is really good. Like the Ravens, feel like a good pick, but it's just they just haven't.
Yeah, something does always happen with them.
Yeah,
either Lamar gets hurt and
especially with the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs are fine, but they're not. They haven't. Their offense has been struggling.
Right.
The AFC is so tough because there's a lot of I hate how the Jaguars are kind of spun out a little bit.
Yeah, man, they're on a 3-game skid right now, man. They gotta get it together. They're tied. They're in a 3-way tie now for their division. So
Yeah.
it's not looking great for them right now.
No, it is not. Yeah, I'll go 49ers, and I mean, it would feel easy to say the Chiefs, not easy, but kind of a cop out. But I don't know. I just trust the Chiefs are struggling, but they always seem to figure it out.
Yeah,
And I don't. I mean, maybe not this year because they don't have Tyreek Hill, and you know Kadarius Toney should probably have been cut by now. But
oh man, that play. Did you see that?
yeah, that was unbelievable.
That was brutal, man. That was brutal.
Maybe the Bills, maybe the Bills do it. I don't know. It's tough. I'll go 49ers Chiefs. I spent too long on this question. I'm just going to go 49ers Chiefs. But the 49ers, I think, are the best team in the NFL right now.
Yep. Oh, for sure. They're beating everybody. I mean, they're blowing everybody out, which is not something that you see a whole lot of in the NFL.
John asked, did you see Dabo's recent comments about Cade like I did, that Cade has been challenged to work on a number of things this offseason? Felt significant to me to be that explicit. Yeah. I think the staff is, as much as people are kind of frustrated with, maybe not getting a quarterback in this cycle, whether it was through the high school ranks or the transfer portal, to kind of, give somebody to nip at Cade's heels a little bit. There's definitely been that challenge for him to come in and fix a lot of things, because he would have moments this year. I mean, you see some of the raw ability at times, but then he would follow up one good play with just, what are you doing, or just an absent-minded mistake, or that just kind of it was detrimental, and it was always the detrimental plays. It wasn't really about making mistakes. It was the kind of mistakes he was making and the timeliness of those mistakes that you can't have, and he's got to be better at. So I'm really interested to see what kind of what kind of returns come out of that, and what kind of strides that he makes, and things he does to get better. Because but I mean, I think Dabo and the staff, they're not stupid. They know Cade was not good enough this year, and he needs to be a lot better. And so that's, I mean, at this point, that has to be the number one priority.
Yeah.
Is,
I mean, the offense as a whole's got a long way to go this offseason. There's got to be a ton of development. Cade's a big part of that. The offensive line's another big part. The wide receivers are also a big part. So nobody's absolved from responsibility on the offensive side of the ball. But I mean, I'm glad. I'm glad that Cade got given, marching orders, if you will, for things that he really needs to focus on this offseason. That's important, because he does have, quite a few things that he needs to significantly improve on. So, I like Cade. I think he's truly a guy that is going to take those critiques to heart and really go work on those things and try to get better. He doesn't strike me as a guy that'll, take offense to it and kind of sulk in it and, whatever. He seems like a guy that's, typically stays pretty humble and is going to take those critiques to heart and go put in the work this offseason. Hopefully comes in next season a much improved version of himself.
Absolutely. And We can only hope. I mean, they've put their kind of like how they did with DJ after 2021. They put their vote of confidence in him, and he's our guy next year. So you're gonna have to see that part. And you did see improvement from DJ. To be fair, but you got to see a progression from Cade as well. And you got to get more out of him than you got this year. Let's see. Yeah, well, Kyle Hamilton's really, really good. Yeah, he's been balling. He's been balling. Let's see. Tiggs asks, is CV Chris Vezina capable of being the guy to nip at Cade's heels? He's going to
have to be.
He'll have to be. Depending on what you think of, Trent Pierman. I mean, who's a guy that, to be fair, the staff has been really complimentary of. They say he has a really good feel for the game. And for people that I've talked to that were at practices, at times he looked like the best quarterback out there. So you don't know. But Chris Vezina is a guy that I think has a lot of raw ability. He came in just not ready, frankly, but it seems like they are happy with the progression he's made in the offseason. But during the season, and the red shirt was really good for him. So we'll see. We'll see what he looks like in the spring. And whether he's he's ready to step in and be a QB2, or do you have to roll with Trent Pierman it's pretty clear Paul Tyson's going to be that fourth guy. But it's going to be, I think it seems like there's going to be a kind of a who's going to be the backup type of battle between him and Trent Pierman. So we'll see.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, if you listen to Dabo Swinney's plan, he's kind of got to be. Unless Trent Pierman takes that step and becomes the second string guy, and then that kind of makes you question where Chris Vezina is, and is he ever going to develop, right? If he gets past, no, I'm not trying to slight Trent Pierman at all, but at the end of the day, he's a walk-on guy. He's kind of an undersized guy. I've heard he's a baller and he can really go out there and kind of make plays, but you would think a guy like Chris Vezina should not have a ton of trouble trying to hold on to that second string position over him. But again, it's hard to say because we haven't seen very much of him. So this spring will hopefully tell a lot in a good way for the quarterback room, I would hope, because we really only rolling with three dudes. Paul Tyson's kind of a, break glass in emergency type deal. He's not really there per se, unless things go really sideways.
Yep. And they said he'll keep his arm warm and ready if need be. But yeah, if you're down to your fourth string quarterback, your season has kind of been in the toilet.
Tick says, "Heaven forbid, who is QB5?" I don't think we have one.
Shoot.
I don't think we have one.
I mean, it'll be I think we have. Oh man, I really always forget the names of a lot of the walk-ons. But we have one or two other walk-on quarterbacks, I think.
Well, there you go. Somebody we will learn their name at that point in time.
I'll have to look it up. DKLS, who do you think wins the ACC right now? Or I'm sorry, next year? It's a good question. I don't think you would say champion, but they're losing a lot. Miami, depending on, I don't know. I think it's too early to say right now because there's a lot of teams that are.
Yeah, Miami could be in that mix. I don't know what North Carolina's going to look like. They're going to lose Drake May, so that's going to be a tough situation. I don't know. Duke's kind of going to go through a really big transition period here.
Yeah. Manny Diaz back in the ACC.
Back in the ACC, Manny weaseled his way back into the ACC.
Did not expect it to be a Duke, but that'll be interesting.
No, that surprised me.
Yeah,
That high.
I was
I didn't
a
see
little
that
surprised.
coming.
Yeah, me neither. It'll be interesting because between for the Duke UNC rivalry, because Manny Diaz was a Mac Brown assistant. Mac Brown fired him from Texas. Maybe I don't know. That could be a little interesting for the what did they play for, the Victory Bell, I think, in football or something like that. So that could be something. Obviously, that rivalry is not nearly as big in football as it is in basketball, but who knows. But I think Clemson will be in the mix. They'll of
for
the
sure.
and of the really of the big three, between Florida State, Clemson, and Miami, as far as the three brands in the ACC, Clemson will be the only one that's returning a starting quarterback.
Yep.
So
there's something to be said about that too.
Yeah.
So,
but I'll wait to see what kind of what moves do those the other two programs make in the transfer portal. What does their roster situation look like? I think it's a little too early to tell right now because there's a lot of things that can change from a roster standpoint for all teams. And Louisville is still hanging around, and I think they had a really good year one under Jeff Brom, and they continue to utilize the transfer portal and NIL, and they're leveraging about as well as anybody right now. So I think the ACC is a kind of, so far, as it looks right now, kind of wide open.
Yep. We'll see. Hopefully it'll be our Tigers. That'll be the preseason hope and expectation, I think, is to be back in contention to win the ACC championship. So
absolutely,
I wouldn't assume that it would be any different than most years.
But John says Brenningstool needs to get more consistent too. Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Needs to worry a little bit less about it getting paid, but we ain't gonna talk about that. Will asks, how do you think Riley Leonard will do in South Bend? I think that's a really good pickup for Notre Dame. It's going to be tough to answer that question because I want to see what they do at offensive coordinator because, obviously Jared Parker took the job at Troy, the head coaching job at Troy. So, there's a OC search going on in that respect.
Yeah.
I will wait to give you an answer until I see what they do with their OC hire, because I think it's a big hire for Marcus Freeman because, going into year 3.
Yeah, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
But, you got yourself a really good quarterback.
Yeah. Absolutely. And he's going to help. He's going to bring a dimension to the game that, Sam Hartman wasn't able to do. Riley Leonard is much better with his legs, and can, with some of the pieces that Notre Dame is losing on the offensive line, there's, you're going to need somebody to kind of mitigate some of those early I don't want to say struggles, but sometimes there can be a learning curve. Joe Alt is a bona fide first round left tackle. That's a guy that's tough to replace. So you want a guy that can kind of, if the guy that replaces him doesn't step in and play well right away, you need a guy that can kind of account for that with his legs and extend plays, escape pressure, all of that. And Riley Leonard can definitely do that. All right. I want to end. This is the last one. I want to end on a Clemson related question.
Let's do it.
We've been going for so long.
Yeah, we're approaching the 2 hour and 40-minute mark here.
I said a couple
rapidly.
I said a couple more questions like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, for sure.
But hey, I love being on here with you guys. So
that's right, man. That's par for the course. That means we got a lot of interaction. So I love it. I'll take it.
John says, "Look out for Cal." Yeah, that's gonna be so weird. That's gonna be so weird. Will says Marcus Freeman is trying to get Mike Denbrough. Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be something. That would be really something. That would be his.
Might have something there.
He was there before. He had been there before. That would be a second stint at Notre Dame. That'd be interesting. Tiggs asks, if that famous call hadn't happened, would the chick? Are you talking about? You talking about Tyler from Spartanburg?
Yeah, I think it would have.
Yeah, I don't think the Tyler from Spartanburg.
It's funny to talk about. Yeah.
Dabo was discontent with the results long before that call, and he had laid it into everybody before that call. So
people giving Tyler a little bit more credit than he deserves.
Dabo was certainly. It didn't take a call from a random fan for him to be upset with how things were going. He was he was laying into people long before that.
I'm sure it fired him up even more though. But definitely, David Wood said, "Did I get a sponsor from a beard trimmer?"
Yeah,
I wish, dude.
We need, we
need a sponsor.
Yeah, I mean, we should start like plugging our email or like in the, just if any sort of sponsors are listening or anything like that, that'd be really cool.
Come on, man. We need a sponsor.
Let's do business.
Let's make.
I'm not working with much, but
you still got plenty. You got plenty. Don't let them hate. You got plenty.
Oh yeah. David asked about Terry Keinert and that whole situation. Yeah, there's not really much to comment about. Just from everything I know and from everything I've been told, it's a nothing burger.
Yeah,
and
got his feelings hurt.
From everything Dabo said, I don't mean to invalidate his experience or Jaden Keinert's experience or anything like that, but it seems like there was either a I don't know, the message wasn't sent in the right way or he didn't receive it in the way it was intended, but he wasn't the only one that had to run. It was an accountability thing, and but his dad labeled it as a verbal abuse, which I've heard no verification of or corroboration. And when people aren't specific and kind of vague in their accusations, it kind of makes you wonder, because I was like, well, what exactly did he say? Because you're claiming that he's saying some personal things, but what is he? You don't have to go into detail, but at least something other than this
right.
Whole,
and
he said, she said, and
it makes it weird because it was a group punishment. Apparently, one of the accountability groups.
Yeah, he wasn't the only one that
it was an accountability run, and from what Dabo said, they got chewed out and they earned their butt chewing. Essentially, is what he said. So I mean, you don't hear anybody else coming out about it, saying that they were verbally abused. Not that maybe I'm not saying it could never happen that no one could come out and say, a coach could come and get heated and say something out of line. It obviously can and does happen. But you would like some more, like you said, direct accusations, like what was said that crossed the line.
Right.
Where did it change from, this is just normal punishment. This is a normal butt chewing that every D1 college athlete gets from time to time, or at what point did it transition into something that was, as they put it, verbal abuse? I don't know. None of us were there, so.
Yeah, but the whole thing was just still in. I was like, oh man, I know this is going to get blown out of proportion, and and it's made a big deal because Terry Keinert is a Clemson football legend. Was on the national championship team, All-American, all of that. So people are going to take his words seriously.
Right.
I really think that whole post read to me just like a disgruntled father that his son got chewed out or whatever, and he didn't. It's also weird to me because Terry Kinard played for Danny Ford, and if you know anything about Danny Ford, Danny Ford is one of the most ruthless coaches in Clemson football history. As far
Right.
like he was something. He was, he was. Well, I'm going to use a word. I might end up using a word that I probably shouldn't, but you get what I'm hinting at. He was mean. I guess is the really polite way to say it.
Brutal, yeah.
Great coach, but he was tough. He was tough, and anybody that played for him would. So I just find it weird that that Terry Kinard of all people would be upset at some tough coaching.
Yeah, I mean, you just assume that kind of stuff happens, all over big time college football,
And I mean, and we've known this about Dabo for a while. I mean, he puts on, he's a different person in front of the, not a different person. He's still himself in front of the camera, but he carries himself in a different way behind the scenes as far as when he's coaching his play. I mean, he will, he can be I don't even know the word for it. He can be really fiery.
Yeah, he can.
When he
can deliver some tough coaching. We've seen it on the sideline a few times. When the camera has caught him, really laying into a player for a boneheaded play or whatever happened on the field.
Ask Andy Teasdall back in the 2015 ACC championship. I don't think I've ever seen a player get laid into like Andy Teasdall was. After that
he didn't just get laid into. He got laid into. Dabo thought about it for another minute or two,
and they
went back and laid it again. He said, "Hold up, I didn't get everything out I wanted to say." Went back over. Yeah, man, he got lit up, and it was what it was. That just kind of happens.
All right, but that's I feel like that's a good place to end it.
I think David Wood puts it perfectly, and we'll end with this. Dabo is a loving coach that doesn't spare the rod. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's kind of his coaching philosophy.
He makes it clear that he loves his players, but he's big on accountability. He's big on if you earn some punishment, you're going to get that punishment.
Yeah.
So
it's like I'll do anything. I'll do anything for you, and I want you to succeed here, but I'm gonna bring it out of you if I had what I need to out of you if you're not going to give me 100% or you're not going to be accountable for what you're doing. That's players know that. Anyone who's ever played for them. So
that's how it should be. I mean, if you're going to have a big time successful program, you got to hold people accountable. But because at the end of the day, they're these are young people that are in this program, and they get distracted and they don't make the best decisions all the time, and sometimes they need a little bit of a wake up call to remember what's important and why they're doing what they're doing. So that's what the coaches are there for, and sometimes tough love is what you need, not always what you want, but it's what you need.
Yep. 100%.
But I think we'll go ahead and end it there. We've been on here for 2 hours and 46 minutes at this point. Thank you guys so much for showing up and hanging out with us, man. It's crazy. We still got 33 people in the live chat right now. If you have not done so already, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, more importantly, so that you can come hang out every time me and Jordan do these live videos. Again, it's every Thursday at 7 p.m. Me and Jordan will be right here with the All-In Show. And then we still have one more post-game live, and that'll be immediately following the bowl game on Friday the 29th. And like I said earlier in the show, I appreciate every single one of you guys for showing up and supporting me and Jordan and supporting this channel. It is greatly appreciated. We will not see you before Christmas, so Merry Christmas to all of you out there. I hope you get to spend time with the people that you love, whether that be family or friends. And I hope you guys have an amazing holiday. You get to eat a ton of food. And then we'll be right back here next Thursday at 7 p.m. to talk about our Tigers and the upcoming bowl game. Jordan, you got anything for the people?
I mean, basically what you said. I mean, we'll see you guys next week on Thursday. Our big Gator Bowl preview. Really excited for that. But until then, enjoy your Merry Christmas, holiday season, whatever you celebrate. And we'll see you on Thursday. Thank you guys for tuning in.
All right. That'll be it, guys. We'll see you next Thursday, 7 p.m. Until then, Merry Christmas and go Tigers.
Later, y'all.